blackness for those who cannot explain their assets or wealth. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refuse to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani Maternity Hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it
own
up.
money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned it.
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
Day 2 of a busy week already, and we see that traffic is building up in certain parts of the city. We're looking at Jogo Road already starting to pile up, getting towards Landis Road today and out towards the Kamkunji roundabout. Everywhere else seems not to have woken up just yet, but we are sure that it will in good time. Coming out of Westlands, also quite packed. Don't forget, you can use the Red Hill Link Road, getting into the city and then coming around about instead of sitting in the traffic that is likely to pile up even more. All right, we're looking at traffic also building up on Mombasa Road, heading inbound, and a little bit outbound. Use Enterprise Road to get onto Mombasa Road, go the back way, and it'll be much easier to get through. Thicker superhighway yet to wake up, but make sure that you're off it when it does. Let's look at what it looks like in about half hour or so. A few minutes after 6 o'clock, traffic doesn't look so bad. Now is the time to be out. Talk to us in a bit. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text on 40127. Tuesday, starting it off just right.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's 9 minutes after 6. Very good morning to you. This 5th day of October 2021. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Welcome to Tuesday. Is it cold or is it? Yes, it
is cold.
Yeah, there's a way. There's a way. How are you, though?
Very well, thank you.
Good to see you.
To you too?
Yes. Sister Ndu.
Yes, good morning.
How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Are you well?
Yes, I am.
Very good.
How are you?
I'm very well done.
Super.
Yes. Yes. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're opening up the Pandora's box today. This is what we're going to do. So remember, we told you yesterday that this week we are celebrating young women who are working in government, occupying senior positions, senior offices in government, in the civil service, and they're making moves. Yesterday we spoke to somebody who's a police surgeon who's really working hard at ensuring there's issues of preservation of evidence on how cases of mostly, especially gender-based violence and violence against children are handled. and taken to court for successful prosecution. Today, we'll be speaking to somebody who's working for the Kenya Revenue Authority. And this lady is the one in charge of training KRA officials on tax matters and also in charge of rolling out an awareness program for taxpayers. So all those things that we don't know and don't understand about tax, she's basically the one who's in charge of making sure that people who come and talk to you about tax know what they should be telling you about. That conversation will be happening at 7 this morning. And then at 8 is when we open up that box, the Pandora's box. Yeah, so the president said, okay, yeah. In fact, that thing, it's very, very good. It's very, very, very good. Now we're going to look at what does that very, very good mean. But also just seeking to understand. When we talk about these offshore accounts, I don't know, money has been put in some tax haven. What is a tax haven? Why is it that you find some companies are registered in some specific countries, or people would loan to put their money in certain bank accounts in specific countries? Why? What's the benefit of doing that? And what's the impact of that as well? Who are the kind of people who do that? So we'll be talking to 2 tax experts who will be speaking to us at 8 o'clock. Keep it right here for the conversation and more. COVID-19 is still doing what COVID-19 is doing. And yesterday, the health CS, Muthui, said that curfew, another 30 days. Immediately, we just saw on social media. The year is 2136. Muthui is successor. He's still extending the curfew. Has just announced that the curfew is being extended for in the year 2136.
I think many folks forgot that there was even an existent curfew in the country.
Yeah.
And so when this announcement of an extra 30 days, people scratch their heads, hold on a minute. There was still a curfew. Yes, folks, there was still a curfew. Also coming out of the Ministry of Health is the fact that, vaccinations are important and that you must go out and get it done. You'd be surprised at the number of people who are having this conversation but have not gone out to get jabbed. We heard the doctor of preventive and, the head of preventive and promotive health at the Ministry of Health yesterday, Dr. Andrew Mulwa, say, you know what? In countries in Europe, you cannot access supermarkets, public spaces without a COVID-19 vaccination certificate. We're looking at countries in Western Europe leaning towards Central and Eastern Europe, making this now almost mandatory, from France to Italy to the Netherlands, Spain and such, saying, you know what, we've seen that this is the way in which we can protect ourselves. Go and get vaccinated. Now, leaving that up to people's freedoms has been well and good for some time. But then they're now saying, you know what, now we're going to do all but force you to go out and get it. So we'll suspend you from work. We won't allow you to access public spots like restaurants, gyms and health clubs, cinemas, etc., which in some cases is the bane of the existence of the of the population in Europe and the Americas. So if we deny you to go to these spots, maybe what you'll do is you go and take 5 minutes and get the jab. So this is what they've done. People have been suspended from work without pay. People have been denied access to public spaces without the vaccination certificate. So if you know that you want to access these places, if you know that you require to be paid for the work that you have done, or that you would like to show up to work, go out and get vaccinated and then get the certificate. Dr. Muller was hinting that at some point, if we don't do this, it might get to that point that we say, look, what kind of restrictions then can we place on people to make sure they go out and get vaccinated? Vaccinations are available. Go and get them done. The major challenge, he says, is that we offering vaccines to healthy adult populations involved in other areas of productivity. We are now taking the vaccines to the people. We've been waiting for them to come. They're not coming. So now we are taking it to them.
Okay.
This is on the day when Kenya recorded 77 new cases, a low positivity rate of 3.2%, and the hope is to keep it under 5 and get to the point where we're at 0. So what's going on with COVID?
Ebu, tell me, they have this campaign to vaccinate at least 100,000 people per day for the next 20 days. They should be at 500,000 more today. How close are they to the 6 million target?
We don't know.
The latest statistics are not showing vaccination, whatever.
Oh no!
From MOH.
You thought that there would be in terms of
that update.
big numbers.
How many have they done? So we're looking at 20 million. Okay. 6 million by in 15 days.
Sorry, but we have 3.8 million vaccinations having been given so far. 3,886,630. The total number of vaccinations that have been received are 6,388,920. Only still now. We were at 3.3 last week. We're now at 3.4. The hope is in the next... Today is what day? The 5th of October.
Yeah.
The hope is in the next 15 days we would have vaccinated another 2 million people.
They want 5.8 million people.
Yes, and right now...
By Mashujaa.
3.8, yes.
We were at 3.8 on the day that Dr. Akwale was here.
We were at 3.78 the day he was here.
Hey.
So over the last 5 days, they've vaccinated 100,000 people. And they want to vaccinate 100,000 per day. Do you hear what I said?
That is a long... That's
yeah. That's a long wait.
Aspirations are good.
It's good, no?
It is good.
Voila.
Yes. The fact that they've begun slow doesn't mean they can't catch up.
Okay. 15 days to vaccinate 2 million people?
No.
All right.
Let's give them time.
That's okay. That's okay. No problem.
Yeah, because when Dr. Akwale was here last week, we were talking about 2 million people in 20 days. That was the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yes.
5 days have passed since.
Sheesh. Okay, let's keep that curfew in place. It's 16 minutes after 6 and we are live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. We are also live on SpiceFM around the country. Are you online? If you're online, say hello to us. We'll be saying hello to you shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. "24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
Were you born for the camera? Are you the presenter with the most? Well, get ready because we're on the lookout for the freshest TV presenters there are. So if you think you got the goods, jump right on because you could be the next face of KTN Home's Straight Up Show. We are looking for one male and female presenter.
Clear conditions in Nairobi this morning at 15. It'll come down to lows of 13 today and highs of 25. Nakuru, partly cloudy conditions at 14, highs of 25. Nyeri is mostly cloudy at 13. We'll go to highs of 26 and lows of 11. Eldoret this morning is clear at 12. That'll be the low for today. Going to highs of 24. In Mombasa this morning, mostly sunny conditions is what we will see at 24. Highs of 30. Back down to lows of 24. And Malindi will be mostly sunny today at 24. It'll also go to highs of 30. Cloudy conditions in Kisumu today at 20, highs of 29 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, it's cloudy at 16, highs of 28 and lows of 15. In Kampala, it's mostly clear at 19. We'll see highs of 26. And we're looking at sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 21, highs of 30, down to lows of 21 today. Joburg is cloudy this morning at 11, highs of 23. We'll come down to lows of 11. And Lagos is raining as usual in this season at 25, with highs of 31 down to lows of 25. Clear conditions at 24 in Kinshasa. That will be the low for today, going to highs of 31. Out into Beijing, temperatures are dropping ever so slightly at 16. It'll be highs of 17 today and lows of 12. While in Paris, mostly cloudy conditions at 12, highs of 17 and lows of 10. London is raining this morning at 14, highs of 15 and lows of 11. And New York still, Monday night, it's cloudy. It'll come into Tuesday with highs of 22 and lows of 17.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. Quite a number of people online this morning. Abdul Kadir Abdallah is tuned in from Komarok, and Samuel Kiplagat tuned in from Eldoret, waiting for an amazing conversation. Well, all right. Erasto tuned in this morning. Joel Kisengese is tuned in as well. Tukondani, a Spice FM client 001 in Pwani. We see you. Okay, quite a number. Let's see if we can get to you guys. Joshua on Sogo tuned in this morning from Nyamira County. Clinton Boss, good morning. Tuned in from Kakamega as well. Vincent Ogutu tuned. Douglas Ogega is tuned in. Wycliffe Theo says good morning. Kaka Elijah Momanyi and Alex Mbogo. Alex says he's been away for 3 months. Has it been that long? Well, you're back after 3 months away. Welcome back. Always good to have you in. Chris Babake Chris also tuned in, and Dr. Nyabuto is tuned in as well. Amos Freeman tuned in from Kimilili. Woken up to the Situation Room. Stanley Ngashe Stan tuned in from Kiswero. That one. Enjoying the Mount Elgon view. Not as captivating as the Mount Kilimambogo view. Okay. All right. Ed Gitonga says, good morning, my bespectacled radio hosts. At Isiolo on transit from Marsabit. My goodness, you're quite familiar, aren't you? Hey. You're at Isiolo on transit from Marsabit to? Well, okay, it will tell us later.
Destination.
This way.
Okay. Helen Jogona says, good morning. Gizima Munyo, well represented. That's a place, I'm assuming. Charity is tuning in from Nakuru this morning. And from the Great Wall of Kino, that's where Odero Jr. is. Benson Momo is also tuned in from County 011, which is what city?
County?
11.
What about it?
Where is it? What is it?
My dear, all counties numbers are in this country. I know where you're going with this one.
Where?
And you can also see where I'm going with it, can't you?
It's a Kenyan county.
Okay, Diana Burr is tuning from Kitengela, and Jete Bobui Christian is tuning from Johannesburg in South Africa, and from Lusaka, Zambia. That's where Naomi Mwanza is. Good to see you guys in Kenya, around the continent. Karibuni sana.
Everybody, welcome. CT, what is today's proverb?
Well, this one, as promised, I'm traveling to Western Kenya.
Right.
All right. Now, what I'm not certain about, because I'm looking at a collection of sayings or proverbs by a gentleman by the name of Tim Wambunya. Okay? He has a really 60 pages detailed. And the proverbs are from the Kisa community, Marama, and Toso and Wanga.
Right.
Yes. Now, I will read it as best as I can. And if you come from one of these communities that I have mentioned, you can tell me if it resonates with your community.
Right.
Okay? Here goes. Right. Goodness gracious me. Abafwa.
Oh, okay.
Babula. Olutseshe. Lulera.
Those three words.
Abafwa. Babula.
4.
Olutseshe.
5.
Lulera.
6.
Abafwa, Babula, Olutseshe, Lulera.
Yes.
4 words.
Yes. The dead have no clear drinking straw.
The dead have no clear drinking straw.
Yes.
That's a nice one. Abafwa, Babula, Olutseshe.
Yes. Lulera.
Lulera. Okay. You can just basically just see pot, straws, people sitting around. The dead don't have a straw. That's a nice one. Okay, so let's take a look at the headlines, shall we?
Let's do that.
Right.
It would appear as though members of parliament are busy. CT, you'd be happy to note.
I will be happy to note.
Yes,
that they're
yes.
busy.
That they're busy doing something that might result in something
Or that might
beneficial.
increase my happiness.
It's possible.
Okay.
But just hold on and let me tell you the details because it might be that it's the absolute
I will
opposite of
hold
what
on.
I'm predicting.
Lulera,
Right. Proposals made by legislators to reduce the rising cost of fuel. Consumers are paying 9.98 per litre of petrol, 8.56 for diesel, and 8.21 for kerosene. Right?
Yes.
This is tax.
No.
Tax. This is tax.
Currently.
Okay,
This is current.
currently.
No, you said tax. You know, for a moment I thought, what a fuel costing.
Which
Where?
fuel is this in which country, right? This is tax,
Okay,
my friend.
Fine. Carry on.
So reduction by half of value-added tax, that's VAT, charged on petroleum products is among the recommendations by a parliamentary committee to reduce the price of fuel. Also targeted for slashing is excise duty and petroleum development levy, as well as the scrapping of the 1.5% railway development levy, the multiple taxes blamed for the spiraling price of fuel. MPs also wanted to amend regulations to require the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, IPRA, to seek parliamentary approval before announcing price reviews. Don't just go and do things willy-nilly. Let us know first. These proposals are contained in a report by the Finance and National Planning Committee that is expected to be tabled in the National Assembly today for consideration. Sources within the committee told The Nation members had come up with far-reaching recommendations they felt would reduce the price of fuel that has been sharply sparking public uproar. We have explored several options, including the reduction of VAT, which we believe, if adopted by the House today, will help in stabilizing the prices. 8% is the current percentage of value-added tax on fuel. The committee proposes that the VAT on fuel is reduced by half. The committee proposes this in addition to other things from the should MPs approve this recommendation, the retail price would fall by at least 5 shillings per litre for petrol, 4.28 for diesel, and 4.1 for kerosene. Following the latest reviews, consumers are paying 9.98 per litre of petrol, 8.56 for diesel, and 8.21 for kerosene. So, if these recommendations are passed today, it's possible that you will see a reduction by at least 4 shillings on these kerosene and diesel and fuel.
Okay.
There's a point still, though, on excise. It says, this story, that by last evening, members of the committee chaired by Gladys Wanga were still haggling on the figures for the reduction of excise duty. Excise duty is supposed to be charged on luxuries like beer, but you are charging it on fuel, which is a necessity. Why can't you remove the excise on fuel so that it can spur economic growth, and then you can collect much more excise from the luxuries? That's what Wanga posed last week.
Let me just ask this question. Luxuries only? If you look at any bank statement,
there's excise on everything.
Yes,
Well,
so where's the luxury in that?
Excise, blah.
Your
There's
2
excise
shillings
on airtime.
Yeah, your 2 shillings comes into the bank, they take excise duty on it.
Yes.
How? No.
Don't like it?
No, I'm merely querying why it is being referred to as something that should be like.
We're going to. It's not a tax. This is not what the tax, the sin tax.
No, it isn't.
It's not this one. Okay, I think it's a good move that they're having this conversation, but they could have had this conversation in June.
They could have had it
You
months
see,
ago.
I am glad you mentioned it because the horse has bolted. They knew the information that led to the details of this increase were there before the increase was actually announced and made. And they were privy to these things.
Yeah.
Okay? These nonsensical games that these fellows keep playing because there's a hue and cry about the prices, and now they are on the side of the Monanchi. They are not on the side of the Monanchi.
They're on their own side.
They're on their own side.
They're
This
playing for
conversation is to give the appearance that our
they're
members
doing
of
something.
parliament are doing something and they're interested in our welfare. Bank, they're not.
They could have had this conversation. Although also, on the other hand, as citizens, we could have been louder in June. You see this kind of noise that's now made Parliament and everybody else react? We could have had it in June.
You know,
Had we gotten to a point where we can actually understand, so if VAT takes effect now, if excise duty rises because of inflation, if this and the other happens, then the likely effect of this is going to be that. We could have been this noise to the Finance Committee when it was discussing the finance bill before they took it to Parliament.
You guys, I keep saying that activism works. And oftentimes it's like I'm asking people to go into the streets, and that's not what I say. That you can open your mouth and be consistent and insistent on certain points, and somebody is going to sit up and take notice. Whether they're working for themselves or whether they're working for you, at the end of the day, they will do something about it.
Yeah.
You know, the pressure works. And if you sit down and just take it, if you lie down and take it that way, lying down, that's just the way it's going to be. But if you are informed about the processes then that govern your livelihood, then you will know when something is going wrong or when it is going right. But if you sit there and say, okay, well, I don't really know and I'm not really concerned, that's just how it's going to be. Because this move that they're making now, do you think it's because they feel the pinch in their pockets about how they're going to spend much on fuel? It is not. But the public outcry, whether they are now doing this for themselves, is okay.
However, I'm worried. I'm worried that because of skewed activism, you see the one thing they've mentioned there about APRA must go to seek their approval before they change anything.
No.
I am seeing a move being pushed here that we shall remove the formula. I am a supporter of fuel control pricing.
I think that formula is a good thing, personally, okay? But why must everything that Parliament is supposed to do, why is it that when they raise their voices, they simply now seek to have more powers than they already have? Why don't they just use the powers that they already have to do what they're supposed to do? Could they not have raised this issue? Must APRA... Look, at the time when these things were being discussed, APRA didn't leave the country and go somewhere else and then came back after that. They were there all along.
They've been here.
Are you telling me they could not have had a conversation with APRA then? I said, folks, these things that you're doing, how exactly are you doing it? These are discussions that could have been had, and they have the
it's
powers
like
to have it.
they're making it sound like IPRA is the one that's creating a law. IPRA is actually implementing a law that was passed by Parliament that says you shall come up with a formula. They came up with a formula. Parliament approved the formula. IPRA just applies it. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Every time you apply A squared plus B squared, come
to us and show us how.
And show us how A squared plus B squared is going to be equal
why
to
is
C
it
squared.
Why
squared?
And you are the ones who authorized it.
Who came up with the formula?
Now, do you see why it is I am saying that these guys are being facetious?
Yes. Yep.
Simply because we say they are not doing their duty, they now say, okay, come and report to us again. They reported to you the first time. They came to you. You gave them the go ahead. You gave them the way forward. They followed the way forward. Then they come back to you.
They come back to you every time.
With the way forward you give them.
Yeah. Every time you want to apply the way forward, come and ask
Which
me.
you gave them.
Yeah. It's 27 minutes to 7. Let's take this quick break. And as we take a break, we'd like you to read the Standard e-paper. All right? The all-new Standard e-paper at an unbeatable price of 20 shillings daily. For 20 bob daily, you get to access the Standard e-paper and also access to premium content on standardmedia.co.ke. Free Sudoku, you get free crossword puzzles, and then you also get free 10 days access to Standard archives. Standard e-paper, 20 shillings daily. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7, around the world, non-stop. This is SpiceFM.
Hello.
Halo, umesikia?
Nimesikia nini?
Hujasikia habari? Hebu acha nikuambie. Kile kimetokea.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Don't wait for hearsay. Dial star 550 star 1 hash to read the Standard e-paper from the convenience of your mobile phone for only 20 shillings from your telecom line, and stay up to date for a reliable source with over 100 years of experience with no additional data charges.
Do you live in a just city? Are you able to freely navigate? Do you live in dignity? Are you safe? This Saturday, Olivia Otieno will be speaking to experts to understand what just cities are and if they exist in Kenya. Here's a sneak peek.
We definitely are fully aware that there is growing urbanization that is characterized by inequalities and therefore the emergence of unjust cities. I therefore invite the civil societies to join hands with the Just Cities Working Group and other stakeholders to promote just urbanization and jointly progress towards the making of just cities and just societies in Kenya.
Just Cities, a special 00 direct account with Olivia Otieno this Saturday from 10 a.m. only on 94.4 Spice FM.
It's picking up coming out of Westlands this morning, getting into the CBD. Inbound traffic is actually quite some as you get to the certain roundabouts all along into the city. We're also looking at it picking up on Jogger Road, heading out towards Landis and to the Kamkunji roundabout. A little bit of traffic just past Ngong Road at that City Mortuary roundabout, then going towards the community area. It slows down just a little bit, but nothing to be too worried about right now. Okay, there's something going on Uhuru Highway this morning. Very, very slow traffic. Aerodrome Road coming off Langata, not too bad. But then just before the Nyeri Stadium roundabouts, there's that clog up. Not quite sure what's causing that, but we'll have an eye on that and see how it opens up in a short while. So while you were away, Thika Road has already built up in terms of traffic. Half an hour ago, you wouldn't have known it, but now it's jam-packed, getting towards the Pangani underpass. That whole section right there already clogged. So likely to continue that way, getting into the morning. Everywhere else seems to be moving along without any issues whatsoever. The bypass is looking good. Southern, Eastern, Northern, and the Red Hill Link Road coming out of Westlands. Those are options for you to use to get where you're going. Quicker, though longer. Still quicker. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. That's how you can get in touch. Text us on 40127.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Is
94.4
Spice. So there's a story in the Nation today, in the county news, and this is one of those stories that is very, very close to my heart. When we talk about open spaces and recreational facilities, spaces in Nairobi, how many can you tell me open parks that we have? Jivanji. Uhuru Park.
Uhuru Gardens.
Uhuru Gardens. It has been closed for a while. Have you seen the monstrosities that are coming up inside there? The military has closed it and they're building things and things. Anyway, let's just count it. Uhuru Gardens.
Arboretum.
City Park.
City Park.
Arboretum.
Karuras.
Ololua Forest. In Gong. All of those are concentrated around some certain area. If you go towards the east part of Nairobi, which
Actually,
has the most population, highest population.
Do we have any such open spaces?
I don't know.
Okay, we had such open spaces. What?
The city was designed with open spaces.
Yes, they have. Where did they go to?
The city was designed with open spaces. We don't know where they went to. So now, here's a story from the City County Assembly of Nairobi. Alarm as city roundabouts turned to spots for leisure. Nairobi MCAs have raised the alarm at an influx of residents who have turned roundabouts on major highways and roads in the city as recreational spaces. The ward reps pointed out that the roundabouts are now a hive of activities, with families using them for leisure and endangering their own lives. They are urging City Hall and NMS to establish open spaces in residential areas for residents used to avert the looming disaster. This was raised by Babadogo MCA Geoffrey Majiwa, who said families from neighboring areas, usually informal settlements, have turned the roundabouts to relaxation points during the weekends. If you drive along Thika Road, you'll find out that the many roundabouts that act as exits to the main highways are a hive of activities with people relaxing with their families. This is a disaster in waiting, he said. When a drunkard will drive on such roundabouts one Sunday afternoon, we'll be telling a different story. To avert any disaster, he is calling on Ankananu and Lieutenant General Mohammed Badi's administrations to convert open spaces in residential areas for recreational use by residents. This man that we're talking about is the Babadogo MCA Geoffrey Majiwa. A few people may recall that Geoffrey Majiwa is a former mayor of Nairobi. Okay? Dandora Area 3 MCA Charles Thuo decried the situation, pointing out that only residents of leafy suburbs have places where they can go for fresh air as opposed to those from other areas. Beautiful spaces are not only exceptional but rare to find. People who don't live in leafy suburbs don't have places to go to for fresh air. This is all very true. But here is what the city MCAs are saying. We are calling on City Hall and the NMS as a matter of urgency to ensure that many other spaces within the city are improved. They blah, 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 blah. This was bar talk, if you ask me. Because they're not saying, for example, in my area, there's such a piece of land that is designed and made for recreation.
That can be turned into.
And we want a budget allocated to convert this into a proper recreation facility. This is all talk. So if you go, there's a very nice photo here of that roundabout at Roasters. See, when you're getting up off Thika Road, Roasters, you can cross over into Garden City.
Yes.
And Garden City, yeah. Nice, huge space there. So people go there. In fact, there's a photo here of people just sleeping on the very dry grass.
Okay.
It's the only open space that they have. Coming from Gomba, for example, and Mathare.
This gentleman who is speaking, was he not a councillor once upon a time?
He was a mayor.
The mayor of Nairobi.
No.
Nairobi Mayor Geoffrey Majiwa.
You know, you start from the beginning.
Yes.
and then you...
Yeah, he was a councillor.
Yes.
He was elected mayor by the councillors.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, if my memory serves me right, you will find that a lot of this public land, agreed, most of it was allocated during the time when he was councillor. Did we hear even a squeak then about, not necessarily this particular gentleman, but people who were then representing the Wananchi in the council? Did we hear them talk about public spaces?
Nope.
No.
So why now?
And even now, as they raise it, it's a valid point to raise. But what solution are you offering?
This is it. It must be solution-oriented
Eric, it's
debate.
invalid.
It's invalid.
It's completely invalid.
Why do you say so?
It's invalid because many politicians who are in this city, if you look at the allocation of land, you just go to any large area. Let's take, for instance, Woodley.
Yes.
All right? Yeah. When you put up such an estate, one of the things that you'll find is a necessity and a basic requirement by law is open space. This very thing you're talking about, open space.
Yep.
And then there has to be an allocation for schools, market, meaning recreation facility.
Yep.
All these things you see that surround or are part and parcel of human habitation. Okay?
Yep.
Why do I say it's nonsensical? We go to Movoko. We're talking about with the residents of Syokimau.
Yep.
What did they tell us about hospitals?
None.
Precisely.
Existing. But when that land was being subdivided from the huge size of plantation that it was, there was provision.
Yes, for recreational land, for schools, for
such utilities.
All those things, for religious places, they are all included.
Yep.
So now, somebody wants to come and tell us that when permission was being given for these developments to take place, they did not know what that land had been earmarked for.
Yep.
These things go through the council and now through the county.
You cannot put up any structure in this city without the approval of City Hall. And the person in charge of City Hall in those days was the mayor. Nowadays is the governor.
You're not going to come and tell us now. No.
Yeah.
Not now.
I can see the validity in the point being that open spaces are needed for recreation in the city.
Let somebody else say it.
On that point, regardless of who says it, on that point, I understand what you're saying.
Sticky point. Some people shouldn't say anything.
Sure. But the validity of the point being that
the point
open
is that
spaces are needed for recreation for the residents of the city.
Yep.
That is
clear.
Yeah.
You cannot argue with that.
Yeah. So, but now, whoever is raising it perhaps was in a position and has the knowledge about how these processes are supposed to be.
They should actually be giving us insight.
They should be giving us.
He should be standing there and saying,
you
know what happened, Mr. Speaker? This is what happened. This happened. This happened. I tried to do this. I was blocked. And I own up to this. And I also know about this and the other. And this is how we can correct.
Or that we are aware that these are the processes that must be followed. 1, 2, 3. And then asking questions as to why then can we not do 1, 2, 3?
Yes.
That should be the point of their argument. But that it is needed shouldn't be a bone of contention.
Which now brings me to that message to the Nairobi voters. I'll be moving my vote from Machakos to my Nairobi. If you are not thinking about the person you're going to vote for as your member of county assembly, wewe, bure kabisa. Because these are the people. We talk about all these recreational facilities. We talk about the health centers that should be working. Yes, we are now praising General Badi because he has put up health centers. Who's managing those health centers? NMS is coming to an end. New county government that comes in, those MCAs should know how those health facilities work. We should have social halls being revamped. Social halls in this city are dead. They should be working. And this is the job of MCA. If you're not thinking about who you're going to vote for as MCA in the next year's election, and you're just sitting there and you're sitting back and asking, okay, so now where is Musalia this time? Where is Ruto? Where is Raila? Who does the president want to endorse? Forget about those ones, man. Start thinking about what's closer to you. It's 6:45.
You know, when you see someone being jailed, a governor or two or someone who stole, then people will fear. Because our problem is not the borrowing, it's the stealing.
We've become actually a nation of thieves. The only thing we lack is an opportunity to steal.
The guys who quote the Bible and say I'm a Christian and all that, and you know they're thieves. Return what you have stolen 4 times. If you know that you have property or anything that you have stolen, just return and say, my God does not allow me to hold stolen things.
We are also a reflection of you, because you elect us. You know, we don't get into our office by ourselves. We are a reflection of the people who elect us.
We don't want to go to the streets. We have a constitution that enables us, assert our will.
When the legislature are now being taken as hostage by the executive for whatever reason, we are now bound by what they want us to do.
This is just outside the realms of reality. We have impunity written into the DNA of our political class.
How old were you when you learned that Jeshi la Wokovu is Jeshi la Wokovu?
I can't say it very well. Well, ni mtu wa Jeshi la Wokovu.
And everyone knows. Okay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
I was looking at several things which I found to be of particular interest. And I will look at them in the order of the interest that I found them to be. Right. Star, page 2. Traffic jams to continue as expressway takes shape. Thank God somebody has actually spoken the truth for once.
But what's the news there? I mean,
Je pense you want to frame that piece of paper.
Sun to rise from the east tomorrow.
Yes.
And you put it in the paper. Surely. What's new? Traffic jams to continue as expressway takes shape.
Let me read the things
that
Kenya have said that they continue to do. Okay? Notable progress, according to Kenya, has been made in the construction of the Operation and Monitoring Center, now which is now at 90%, 98%. Okay, it will help manage and maintain the road once it is operational. Center from which all this will happen is at 98%. Where it's located, I don't know, but they say it is 98%. Okay. Over 4,000 people have been employed directly under the project in various departments. Good thing, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. It says traffic engagement remain a critical component of the implementation, and they are there to ensure the ease of movement, and this is what they're doing, and safety of motorists.
Yeah.
This is what caused my. I said safety, movement. Okay, people move. Okay, let's let that one go. Okay. They also said that there are various interventions that have been put in place, such as an opening up of completed sections of the expressway to traffic to give way to workers on the existing highways.
Have they opened up that one?
Which one? People are there. September, what was it? 30th. Today is what date?
5th
October.
5 days later. They haven't opened up that section.
Nehi.
Well, the section between Westlands and the ABC place, that was to be open on the 30th. I can hear confirm that it has
you naysayers
not
kindly
been
keep
opened.
quiet. Keep quiet as I continue to read, please.
Okay.
Okay. Ken has said it had opened up the lanes that were previously closed at Syokimau and Mlolongo areas.
And then close them again.
Please listen.
Sorry.
And improved 2 unidirectional U-turns and various points such as Mlolongo.
The U-turn at Mlolongo has been opened.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is the one I found particularly lovely. And there's continuous watering of the construction sites to reduce dust.
I can confirm that it is a lie. Watering what?
All right. Kenha also angles at diversion points such as Gateway Mall. They were being widened to ease vehicle movement.
The turn at Gateway Mall.
Yes, it's widened to. So when you see the
Ken
jam,
has supervised the creation of those turnings.
yes, they did.
Like 10 years ago.
Yes, they did.
Those turns are useless.
But those things, they don't make sense. They didn't make sense before we started putting up this thing. How on earth did they think them up?
It's
Assuming
Kenha.
they thought.
It's Kenha.
I mean, you drive up to Machakos before you can actually turn. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. I haven't finished. Kenha would like to appreciate all motorists on the patience they have exercised during the implementation of these interventions.
Of course they would. You know what?
Very good.
I'm going to pull back on something I said before. I know I said it was absolutely necessary for you to communicate some of these things to us. Actually, I don't think so. No, don't tell us anymore. Just leave it. Let it just happen as.
Let it be a surprise.
Yeah. You'll say, wow. You wake up in the morning and say, whoa, they finished. As opposed to all this other drama. Oh, we'll open. Then 5 days down the line,
All
it's
right,
not
I just
open.
have 2 more things I need to mention.
No,
Just
CT.
2 more things. 2 more things. Ken has said the Haile Selassie University of Nairobi roundabout will be restored on October 15th, 10 days from now. You know, Kenha has somebody in the communication department who has a really good sense of humor.
No, I think they've hired a comedian. You know what it is? It's like there's so much stress in the economy. Let's hire somebody who's going to lighten this thing and at least give us something to.
Okay. Lastly,
Oh no.
test runs on the road will take place in March next year.
Okay.
And we are confident that the contractors will have completed all the works by February. I knew you'd like this one. This is what is attributed to Transport CS James Masharia. Oi!
Oh.
I am merely reading what is written here. I have not made up anything.
There were 3 stories. That was one.
Now, this one is a little more serious. Okay? Kenna, we thank you for at least bequeathing us this humor so early in the morning. Thank you.
It's very nice.
Hey. The Uber I came with to work, a gentleman by the name of Karaoke, to ask me if I work at Standard Media. I said I do. He says, nikuulize kitu mzee. Nimesikia hii barabara itaisha next year.
He was asking the wrong guy.
So I asked him, we ukiangalia unaona itaisha next year? Nasema sioni. Lakini niliona tu nikuulize.
Wow.
Right. Page 3 of the Star. This one is now serious stuff.
Okay.
KDF widowers who remarry will lose pension.
Why? Okay.
Well, the reason they gave actually is very, very simple. Okay. Regulation number 2021. This is what it reads. The board shall cease payment of pensions from the date following marriage or cohabitation upon confirmation of the same. Meaning, widower, you marry, remarry, you're cohabiting. And the reason they gave is that this money is intended for the upkeep of children. And dependence.
Right.
So if you marry or remarry, the likelihood of this
You
happening...
cease being a dependent.
Yeah.
No, but you don't. It doesn't stop the child.
I am merely...
Okay, so sorry.
You know, it's as though...
However, even
really
on the others, I think one of those laws on marriage and dissolution of marriage, we even read it here the other time.
We did.
If you remarry, what happens? Alimony ceases.
Yeah.
Okay. But now this is pension.
But and these are widows and widowers.
Yeah, but if you remarry,
I think previously the assumption is that if you remarry, the unspoken assumption, which may be wrong, is that if you remarry, that you're not remarrying because of death of your spouse, that there was a divorce. But here it's very clear that widows and widowers, right?
That's what it says very clearly.
Yeah.
even in inheritance, actually it was the law on inheritance.
It was?
It was inheritance. Widower remarries, then the conversation of inheritance changes. Yeah.
But you see what it means is, all you will need to do if you're widowed or you're widowed, you make sure that the relationship is kept very secret.
The new relationship.
The new relationship. Huh?
Yes.
Well, the old one can't be
a secret.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be a widow or widower, would you?
Indeed. Can I quickly tell you about importers at the coast, at the port? They had a standoff with the KPA over the SGR transport. This was not likely to go away anytime soon. Kenya Ports Authority is in the spotlight again over cargo destined for Mombasa and its environs being hauled to Nairobi on the SGR. There's a dispute between KPA and importers over whether their cargo should be transported by SGR or released to the Mombasa-based container freight stations. These are the CFSs, right? This echoes challenges that importers experienced in the start of the SGR operations when the government, keen on increasing traffic to the new rail, compelled importers to use the freight train. This, was however overturned following a court ruling that gave the importers an option to pick where to send their cargo. Right? So you can now choose. You want to send it to CFS or you want to send it by cargo. But now SGR is insisting, rather KPA is insisting that this cargo is put on the SGR. And the importers are saying, well, we want the option of, essentially going by road.
This discussion is still ongoing, is it?
It's not going to end anytime soon. It's very interesting because just the other day, there was an intervention done for a young man in Mombasa who was a cargo operator by road. And he's gone into a depression because, their businesses basically have been shut down by the inclusion of the SGR and the insistence of the SGR use. So these folks now being given a lifeline where the decision was overturned to say, all right, you can choose how you're going to transport your cargo. Made it a little bit better for some of these businesses. But now KPA coming in, who has really the say in a lot of all of these transportations, insisting on the SGR.
Actually, they don't.
Insisting now on the SGR is now going to give, this standoff a lot more fuel.
They're exercising dictatorial powers they don't have. KPA can't decide what you do with your cargo, where you take it. That's not their mandate. How is it the purview?
Well, they can tell you where to pick it up from.
That's all they can do.
When they do that, they've already
Since they're telling you how it's going to move.
If they tell you, so this is cargo in transit, pick it up in Naivasha. That's it.
The only way you can pick it up is the only way it will get to Naivasha is if it has gone by rail.
Our inland container terminal
is
in Naivasha. This is your cargo. We're taking it right out, Naivasha.
I think you have illustrated my point well. Yes. Somebody somewhere is trying to please certain people by showing that they are adhering to the norms that are circumventing the court ruling.
I also think there's a lot that is unspoken when it comes to these issues of KPA, the SGR, and road transport. In terms of market forces, what is cheaper, what's not cheaper, and who's playing what role somewhere.
And who's to decide, really? Okay, yes, there's the government decision, one can understand.
Yeah.
Environment, pollution, we get that, we understand it. But surely you're talking about an industry that employs God knows how many number of people.
Yeah.
And so how do you balance all this?
We'll have more conversations coming up in the next hour. In the next hour, let's talk about taxpayer education. What do you know about your obligations as a taxpayer? Remember, you can get the all-new Standard e-paper at an unbeatable price of 20 shillings every single day. And with that, you get access to premium content on standardmedia.co.ke. You also get access to free Sudoku every day, free crossword puzzles every day. And you have access to Standard Media archives for 10 days for free. The Standard e-paper, 20 shillings daily. Good morning, it's now 7 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Police officers in Nyeri County have launched an investigation into a case where one family is claiming their baby was exchanged at the county's main hospital during the delivery. According to A.B. Muthui, a senior detective in Nyeri, the matter is being investigated to determine the family's allegations that the mother delivered a baby boy, yet the hospital's health workers handed her a baby girl who had passed on. Deputy Governor Dr. James Gesami held an emergency meeting with senior health officials in the county to resolve the matter. Meanwhile, the medical director in the county, Dr. Sarah Zayunga, has denied the family's allegations, saying they are willing to fund DNA tests for the parents and the child's body so that the truth can be arrived at.
Theater na akazaa mtoto ambaye hakuwa na shida, ndio jina yake iliwekwa kwa yule alizaliwa siku zilifika, akawekwa kwa hiyo jina, lakini hakukuwa na ex, na yule alikufa alikuwa msichana na mama alionyeshwa mtoto.
Despite this, the affected family has continued to maintain its original position that the child was exchanged. Vincent Bikundo is the husband to the woman.
Bibi yangu hakuwa hiyo na mtoto huyo mwenye alizaa. Wakati alizaa hivi walibeba mtoto wakaenda naye. Hawako hii muonyesha mtoto, wamwambie mtoto wa aina gani. Sasa scanning ilikuwa inatuambia mtoto kijana. Nilipopewa burial permit tukafika kule penye mtoto amewekwa, amesiliwa. Cha maajabu kushtuka, ile sili ambayo imesili mtoto ilikuwa sili ambayo imeandikwa jina la mama tofauti.
Well, now, as we approach the 2022 general elections, politicians have unleashed their claws in search for votes. Deputy President William Ruto has continued to urge leaders to end politics linked with tribal rhetoric which do not benefit voters. Speaking in Kisii County, Ruto cited tribalism as a source of division in the country during each electioneering year.
Hatutaki siasa ya migawanyiko na chuki na ukabila. Tunataka tuungane sisi wote ili tuweze kutembea safari moja. Mnakubaliana na sisi hivyo? Na ndio sababu hiyo mkiona hawa wabunge wenu wa Kisii na wabunge wengine wengi wa Kenya, zaidi ya wabunge 150, tumeungana panga siasa bila ukabila na chuki na mambo ya migawanyiko.
This is ODM Chief Raila Odinga criticized the Deputy President for hoodwinking Kenyans that he is playing in their corner, yet in reality he is using them to get to power.
You do not promise them digital jobs now, you atumwambia hawa ati kazi ni kazi. Sasa tunataka kuwapatia hawa wa wilbaro. Hiyo sio ngwana. Sisi tunataka vijana wetu wapate kazi wa maana ili waweze kusaidia kwa uzalishaji wa rasilimali katika taifa letu.
Now, as the enhanced voter registration exercise enters its second day today, the youth continue to be urged to show up in large numbers and be registered ahead of the 2022 general elections. This, according to leaders, experts, and even the Constitution, will give them the power they need to exercise their democratic right as protected by the supreme law of the land. The first day of the exercise was marked with low turnout, without spot check in various registration centers, indicating that the youth have decided not to participate in the electoral process due to various reasons.
Sisi kama vijana hatupigi kura kwa sababu tukizipiga wanapanda magari wanaenda huko Nairobi, hawatukumbuki. Huku mashida, huku mashinani, shida ni zile zile tu bado. Hawatusaidii, tunawachagua hawatusaidii.
Tunakosa kupiga kura kwa sababu wale wanaohusika na zoezi hilo hawatupi mafunzo kamili ya umuhimu wa kushiriki kwenye zoezi hilo. Pili, huwa tunashangaa kwa nini wanasiasa wanagombania ama wanang'ang'ana wenyewe kwa wenyewe na kueneza chuki dhidi ya kura ambazo ziko mfukoni mwetu.
This is despite IEBC warning that they are short of funds because, as we speak, the Commission has a deficit of 13 billion shillings yet to be debited in its accounts after approvals, which in turn paints a bleak future with regards to if the Commission will have another registration exercise. Also important to note is that the National Assembly Committee Chairman of Budget, Kanini Kega, warned that there are no funds for another registration exercise. Let's listen in.
Ni vizuri wakati huu Wakenya wajue kwamba hatutakuwa na hera zingine za kuongeza muda wa kujisajili. Kwa hivyo wachukue nafasi hizi siku 30 wajihakikishe kwamba wamejisajili. Tunatarajia kwamba zaidi ya wapiga kura milioni 6 wapya watakuwa wanasajiliwa.
But even with the reasons being given by the youth holding water and weight to them, the only way to change any leadership and install individuals you think can bring the much sought after change you need is through voting and exercising your right. This gives you the power to change the narrative, and so much power that during that time, the so-called politicians are forced to come beg for your vote. But you can only have that power if you vote. Therefore, it's important that you do the right thing and register ahead of the 2022 elections. This is the editorial piece on Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
It's built up considerably on Jogger Road this morning, getting into the city. Landis Road is chock-blocked, and we have bumper-to-bumper traffic all the way getting into the city centre this morning. Uhuru Highway started very early today, and we have inbound traffic that's then feeding off from Aerodrome. It's feeding off also from Upper Hill, feeding into from also State House all the way up the road. I don't know what's going on here, but it's an absolute mess, and everybody is then leading into the city centre this morning. All right, Thika Superhighway, my goodness gracious. There's traffic that's spilling over from Outer Ring. Kiambu Road is also adding to that, and that's a mess going in there. So speaking of Outer Ring, in the opposite direction, coming off of North Airport Road and going in that way, looks pretty packed this morning. Nothing too crazy. We're just looking at Tuesday morning traffic as normally would be the case. Also on Langata Road, coming off from Gong Road as well. Shall we keep an eye on things? Hopefully it doesn't get too much crazier than it is right now. We'll be in traffic hour in about half an hour or so, where things will definitely be heightened. But for now, I think we can manage this, and let's try to do just that. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This
7
is
after
the
7.
Situation
Very good
Room.
morning to you.
The
How
only
are
way-
you doing? Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, this lovely Tuesday morning. It's the 5th day of October 2021. CT Muga has... This proverb is from where again? It's from Western Kenya. Which of the three communities that you mentioned?
Well, I'm not sure which of the three communities it is. I honestly am not certain.
Okay.
What I'm certain of is that it is from that part of the world. Yes, but as to which particular community, if I told you I knew that community, I would be lying. And it wouldn't be a good thing for me to lie so early in the morning, would it?
No, wait at least until lunchtime.
Lunchtime is a good time, isn't
Yeah.
it? So then at least a lie or two can go down
It's
well,
okay.
isn't it?
Yeah.
The proverb in English is, the dead have no clear drinking straw.
The dead have no clear drinking straw.
Yes. But now, in the language from the western part of the country, this is how it reads. Abafwa, Babula, Olutseshe, Lulera.
Abafwa.
Abafwa.
Babula.
Babula.
Olusheshe.
Olutseshe.
Olutseshe.
Lulera.
Lulera.
Yes. The dead.
Abafwa.
Yes, Abafwa.
Babula.
Mm-hmm.
Abafwa.
Olutseshe.
Olutseshe.
Yes. Lulera.
Lulera.
Sounds like Zulu.
Bantu.
It's very Bantu. Our guests in the studio this morning is Emma Kithenji. Emma, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Can you say Abafwa? Babulera. Babula. Olutseshe. Lulera.
I can only get to Abafwa.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
The rest is just becomes too complicated. Especially that part of Olutseshe Lulera. Hey. Because that's where now the straw is.
Yes, and the Bafwa bit, I think, is the dead.
Is the dead, eh? So Babul now becomes the drinking.
I suspect this is us now trying to figure out a language that other people know and understand well. Let someone send us a tweet and tell us whether we've got it right or whether we are speaking some really
translation word for word. Yes. Emma Kithenji is the head of tax training at the Kenya School of Revenue Administration. Sounds like a big thing, right?
No.
It's a big thing.
It doesn't sound like a big thing. It is
man.
a big thing.
The Kenya School of Revenue Administration, head of tax training. What's that, Emma?
So thank you very much. Head of tax training, what does that mean? Kenya School of Revenue Administration is a school owned by the Kenya Revenue Authority where we train. Our core mandate is to train the KRA employees. But we opened our doors to the public. Now we train the public. We have collaborated with other institutions to offer tax knowledge. Yes.
So initially, you were only training people at KRA.
Yes.
To understand tax.
Yes.
And then they come to us without any knowledge to ask for tax. And now you've decided that you want to teach us about the tax. So how do you conduct the tax training now with the citizens, the taxpayer?
What happens, we have programs that we run. We have from certificate all the way to master's level. And the certificate diploma are offered by Kenya School of Revenue Administration. We are an institution that is regulated by TVET. And for the postgraduate diploma, we have partnered with JKUAT. For the masters, we have partnered with Moi University. But we have a new kid on the block called the advanced diploma. Advanced diploma is the new kid on the block because it is it's different in terms of delivery. Number one, it's taught by industry captains. Number two, it's modular. You do it for 21 module, 20 days, you're done until you finish the diploma. Yeah.
Why is it important for folks to have this training? And whether you're looking across corporate, leave Kenya Revenue Authority officials alone. Why is it then important? We're looking at corporate sector, private institutions. Why is it important to have this kind of training?
To raise the compliance levels in the country. When we were growing up, when you were in school, did you ever learn about taxation?
Well, yes, because of the kind of school I went to, Mel's different, but
You're not about taxation? All of them, like the taxes in the country.
Not all.
There's income tax.
But there was
the tax.
The basics in a particular class.
The basics. So it's important to raise the compliance levels. What happens nowadays when like a carry bus would go to, let's say, a village in Shamahoho, what happens? They close the shops and run away. But if some of the people who are there know about these taxes, there's no point of running away because the number one job as a Kenyan citizen is to know how your taxes operate and for you to pay your tax.
Okay, so so it's important to train these people. Anybody who comes in, it's important to train them so that they know essentially what they ought to pay.
Yes, what they ought to pay, why they ought to pay, and how they ought to pay. Yes.
Okay.
So when you do the tax training, do you start from the basics? Like somebody just ought to know what is payee and what is VAT, or are you looking at somebody who's been employed as an accountant in a certain office, those are the ones that you want to train.
What happens, we have the corporate courses and the academia courses.
Right.
The academia courses, we follow a curriculum. Yeah, we follow a curriculum. But for the corporate courses, like you guys can come to us and tell us we need a training on media, taxation in the media industry, and we will tailor make that for you. Yeah.
You know, when you mentioned the bus arriving in a certain part of the country and people shutting down shops, why you saw me smiling and smirking is because if somebody came to me today and told me they work for KRA, I would not smile. My automatic reaction would be okay. So what is it that I have forgotten to do?
What have I eaten?
Yes. KRA, yes, what you're doing is laudable, it's commendable, but your image in the eyes of the ordinary Mwananchi is negative. You are the ghost with which we scare children at night.
The ghost in the darkness.
Yes. In my community, it's called Coco.
But I think the image has changed.
Or I call Coco.
Coco is the Coco will come and bite you.
And this is Coco. You don't eat. Or I call Coco.
Yeah, but I think things have changed. Now we are friendlier.
No, you are distinctly friendlier. You seek to explain yourself. But the damage that was done previously, okay? In fact, when I was told you're coming here, I told my colleagues, I'm going to ask you, since you're in the training, this unit, this specific unit that you use to train your people on how to scare taxpayers, what's that unit called?
I mean, we train people how to deal with smugglers, so...
No, smugglers, I understand, but a common Mwananchi, like, if Kerry writes your letter, you can be unwell for a week. Because you just
by receiving the letter.
Yeah, you receive the letter, you open it, you're seeing jail. Yes. More jail.
And then down there it tells you, get in touch with the undersigned.
Yes, yes.
Without prejudice.
But before that, it's loss of property.
No, nowadays things are better. We have... things are better. Yeah.
They are not better. They are infinitely better.
Thank you. Thank you.
You see, for it to resonate in the way that I see it as, we need a citizenry that is happy to pay tax.
Yes.
We haven't gotten there yet. Because in my mind, that's the measure. When citizens understand, look, if they came to you and said, you know, I did ABCD, you only taxed this, but you forgot to tax this one, then you will have arrived. But so long as we are under-declaring, because that's what Kenyans tend to do.
Oh, yes.
Then we haven't quite gotten there.
Yes, and also, if we come to you and scare you, if nowadays, if we come to you and scare you, will you really pay your taxes?
No.
I need to talk to you nicely so that you can tell me, you know, I have under-declared here, what do I do? You know, nitakuchapa penalty kidogo, nikwambia unalipa hapa, this is how you do, so that you can be compliant.
The many things like Siti is saying, it's coming from the old mindset and trying to catch up with the new KRA. Because yes, we've interacted with several officers now from KRA, yourself and others, friendly people who want to make you understand what this whole business of paying tax is all about, and that you're not out to take me to jail. No. But 3 months ago, KRA guys came and knocked at my office. Okay? I went and opened. I found 4 people, one of them carrying a gun and wearing police uniform. Habari yako? Senior officer wa KRA. We are just going around this office block, just registering the officers that are here. Which one is this? I looked at them. I spoke to them from outside. I did not let them in. Because I could see they're being very friendly, and they're explaining themselves, and they're saying, this is why we're here. We're just taking notes, we just want to map out the companies, the organizations that are here. And you can see the reason why they have a police officer is also for authenticity. Because anybody can walk to you and say,
I'm from KRA.
I'm KRA.
Yeah.
Like, how do I know?
And
but at least when you have a police officer with them, you can tell, well, there's no way a police officer would be accompanying thugs.
In which country?
Well, you're reducing the chances. Friendlier KRA. Cost of compliance is still a big issue. And when you're talking to people, when you're doing, ordinary training with the the Erics who are running small businesses. Cost of compliance obviously will come up because there's so many things, you need to file this, you need to file the other, you need to understand how to do this and the other. And then when you come to the benefits that you can get, I don't know if there's benefit for this, you could take advantage of this benefit for this. I need to know all those things, so I need to go and hire somebody to do that for me. Can we just make it easier?
That is why we opened the doors to you.
Uh-huh.
To come and let us train you. Let us train you on how to do these things. Because you get many people, it's not like, it's because they don't know. And reading the act is not friendly.
Yeah.
It's not a friendly thing. That law language is not friendly.
That has difficulties, yes. But some of these things that you say are simple, like declaration, filling these forms online. Hey?
Filling the iTax is so easy.
That's what I was told.
Until?
I tried.
Now you come to Kesra. We will take you through from point A to Z.
I got somebody who can do it for me.
Oh, okay.
Easier.
Fair enough.
But if coming to Kesra is free, I will come. If you ask me to pay, you will then ask me where I got the money to pay. And you'll want to tax it. So that one I'm not taking. I know a bait when I see one.
When you come, basically, they are coming to ask you, so tell us about yourself.
Yes.
I have a piece of land. I collect rent, I
have a small
farm.
Have some sugar.
Okay, yeah.
And given where I come from, I'll tell them I'm also director.
In
this and this
director,
organization.
this and that. So we put all those things together. Now when you're declaring your tax, you already entered the mix.
Watch I even know. I know my pin number off head. Pin number, nice. I tell you, really, because I'm just pin.
Mr. Muga.
And they look at you and say, and you paid this tax last year. Okay. So you know the course they'll start with? Okay. Jail term. Okay.
So, I mean, as you hear all these things, Emma, obviously there's a fear, and I think that fear is still quite resident amongst many Kenyans, in as much as KRA has taken on a friendlier approach in the recent past in how it deals with citizens. Now moving forward with the education and the training, obviously, that is available to many a Kenyan right now. And with the laws that are being made in the country in terms of how then Kenyans will operate with tax. Moving forward, how do you see things playing out? With, in my opinion, an obvious directive should be to be able to widen the tax base in this country, have more people compliant. How do you see these things moving forward for us to get to the point whereby it doesn't seem as though KRA is coming up with more taxes to kind of penalize Kenyans and to raise money instead of making it a symbiotic relationship between the taxpayer and the tax authority?
No, moving forward, I want to say this, that it is a journey. It is a journey. It is a journey we have come, and it is a journey that we are getting there. We say tulipe ushuru, tujitegemee. It is, we have to raise this awareness, to raise the compliance issue, to raise the compliance levels. And when we expand the tax base, what are we telling people? What is it that we are telling people? We're expanding the tax base, we're collecting more taxes because we need the roads made, we need the hospitals made. Our job at KRA is to collect. Because I know there's that fear of, so when you collect, does that money do
what it says it's going to do?
Our job is to collect, and you as a citizen, your role is to pay the taxes.
You know that what you do, that's beyond your purview.
Yes.
That we understand. You see, I am more concerned about the end product that demonstrates conclusively that KRA is doing everything that they ought to be doing. And that is, I, the taxpayer, being happy to pay my tax. Or I, the taxpayer, am willing to pay my tax. The big problem that KRA has is not the collection of taxes, but the unwillingness.
Yes.
Now, the unwillingness, when it relates to the relationship that the taxpayer has with the tax collector, that is what ought to be remedied.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I hear you,
How should they do that?
You see, they clearly make these attempts, okay? Like, for instance, they sometimes give waivers. They say, we know you've been lying on what you declare. But if you come by this time, we will not jail you. You just come, bring yourself, and pay what you're supposed to pay, or come with a plan. Now, when you do that, it is reaching out. So you end up getting money you ordinarily wouldn't have gotten. Like, I'm looking at this paper before me. It says that the taxman netted 1.9 billion shillings in such a venture. But my benchmark is actually the Kibaki era, okay? Where they understood that the only way this country is actually going to do the things that they want to do is if we get this tax collection business in order. And they got it in order. Now, it isn't something that stays in order. It's always a work in progress.
Yes.
How you get in new taxpayers, how you ensure that they stay there, how you ensure that they pay their taxes. Now, if KRA assures us that that is the thing that they're constantly doing, then I myself will be happy. I will be happy. Insofar as one can be happy with KRA, I will be happy.
Do you think training will help here?
Yes, it does. Training does help because that iTax thing that I spoke of, the colleague who helped me understand it actually walked me through it and said there's this. And at the end of it, I understood what she had said, but I still couldn't do it. But I had understood what she had said. Probably just a block in my head.
I think it is because people think tax is hard. It's not easy though, but when you are educated and you know what needs to be known, you don't come at it from a point of fear. You're coming at it from a point of, I know, so what next? How am I supposed to declare my taxes?
Fear is healthy.
There's unhealthy fear.
Fear is not always negative. If people didn't fear KRA, they wouldn't pay taxes.
Well,
I think I get the point that you're saying, Emma, because when you empower people with knowledge, then you've broken down all those walls and barriers. And if it becomes easier for me to be able to log on and file my own tax returns, and I need to understand these are my obligations, so this is how I go about it. I mean, we do many more complex things.
Yeah.
And this is just filling out a form and then uploading it and clicking. It's only because you know that if you get it wrong, you risk a penalty. If you don't do it, you risk a penalty. I think that's what now also adds up onto that pressure. It's just like sitting a KCPE or KCSE exam. You know this, you know very well, like we said earlier, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You just misapply that and you don't get the 5 marks. And you don't get the 5 marks, you don't get the pass mark that you require. You don't get the pass mark, then it also affects the school that you go to. The bigger implication adds on to the pressure. I don't know how, as you create all this awareness on people, how we can get to a point where then I'm more confident, and as I'm filling out the forms, as I'm applying for any new tax obligation, as I'm applying for any rebates and all, that penalty is not the fear that I have. How can you remove that fear of non-compliance from people?
It is just basically knowledge. It is just basically knowledge. It's knowledge. Once you know what you need to do, and once you know, okay, if I'm filing my end of year return, if I do 1, 2, 3, I risk a penalty. But if you have this process very clear in your head, and you can understand the law very well, you understand the process, then why the penalties won't be there? Because it's actually there. It's on the return.
My math teacher used to say that. Yes. I mean, it's so basic.
It's basic to the math teacher, of course.
If you didn't do algebra, just go back to lower primary. And this is in college.
Who do you partner with? I mean, KRA, you say you partner with industry. Do you partner with learning institutions?
Oh, yes.
The reason why I asked this question, whenever we talk about, say, national ethos and understanding nationalism and things that ought to be inculcated in people, we always bring in the discussion of making sure that it's part of a curriculum at school level, primary and secondary. Now, tax is an important thing. So do you partner with institutions of learning so that at whatever level, since you are a learning institution and you can, have you thought of creating a curriculum or something that can actually be introduced so that people grow up understanding tax? If you understand it from an early age, it won't be scary. And if you understand why it is done, it can even become part of an ordinary discussion that people have.
Yes, because I can assure you it's not ordinary. What we have right now are tax clubs in schools. So basically, in your club, you talk about the taxes, just the basics. But I like the idea of inculcating a curriculum from right down. It's something that I think we should pick up.
Just like you asked you asked all of us from the very beginning, as you were growing up, were you taught tax in school?
Yes, it is something we should pick up.
Tax is something you encounter when you start working and you're told, pay as you earn. Okay?
Yes.
It shouldn't be that. It's something that can be introduced at a very basic level and it can be understood, because when you talk about costs of commodities, you're talking about a component of tax which is hidden, because nobody talks about it, but it's always there. So one can always talk about tax and one can always introduce tax at a level that it can be understood even by a child who is in nursery school.
I agree with you 100%.
We're taking a break, and as we go into this break, I think when you come back, you will answer some question here. For example, Donald Ndu, what is Donald saying?
Donald seems
from the
to be
lower one.
A bit frustrated this morning, and he's asking, KRA is so unfair, fining me 20,000 shillings in 2018 for failing to file nil returns. Is it even logical? And he's gone to post his message direct from KRA. A couple of the questions coming in terms of what we're talking about now.
He received a letter from KRA telling him, you have not paid tax of 20,000 shillings for the obligation income tax resident individual for 2016 to 2017. He's been told now, kindly, pay within the next 15 days.
Or else.
Ending November 2018, failure to which will attract penalties and interests. They even received a defaulter's notice. So I was wondering now, surely. It was only nil returns I was supposed to file, surely. Now you're charging me 20,000 shillings for giving you nil. It's 7:30. Let's take this break. Emma Kethinji, Head of Training at the Kenya School of Revenue Administration, is with us in the studio. Remember that we said this week we are celebrating women who are making big moves in government, in various levels of government. Yesterday we had the police sergeant. Today we have the taxpayer trainer. Tomorrow we'll have somebody else. Good morning.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather
We're
with
looking at
SpiceFM.
clear conditions, sunny conditions in Nairobi at 15, highs of 27 and lows of 13 today. Nyeri, cloudy at 16, highs of 25 and lows of 11. Nakuru is cloudy at 17. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 14, while in Eldoret it's mostly cloudy at 16, highs of 24, coming down to lows of 13. In Mombasa this morning, partly sunny at 25, highs of 30 and lows of 24, while it's 27 and partly sunny in Malindi, highs of 30 and lows of 25. All right, in Kisumu, mostly sunny conditions at 21, highs of 29 and lows of 19, while in Kakamega, it's partly sunny at 17 with highs of 28. It'll come down to lows of 15. Kampala is sunny at 20, highs of 26 and lows of 19. Sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 23, highs of 30 and lows of 22. Looking at light rain continuing in Lagos at 25, highs of 31. Cloudy conditions in Johannesburg at 11 with highs of 23. Kinshasa is partly cloudy at 24. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 31.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
North Airport Road this morning, going then towards the Embakasi roundabout and then out onto Outer Ring this morning is very, very slow. We're looking at inbound traffic also on Mombasa Road continuing this morning. The ICD route, fantastic, because folks are getting where they need to go in record time. And then getting onto the Southern Bypass also is an option for you to use this morning. Use that, please. Use that. The Jogo Road around the Makadara train station is where it slows down considerably. So bumper to bumper traffic all the way from Hamza out towards the roundabout at the City Stadium and then spilling over into Landis Road. Kamkunji roundabout is an absolute mess. My goodness, getting into the CBD. Where else is it clogged up? On Langata Road, getting into the CBD, as well as Ngong Road this morning. We started out quite early. That community situation still continues. So traffic spilling over from Outer Ring onto the Thika Superhighway is not letting up either. Kiambu Road is absolutely packed, as it is on Limuru Road heading out into the city. So what are we looking at everywhere you look? Traffic. Hope we can get through without too much of a scratch. SpiceFMKE on Twitter is how you can get in touch just in case you get into a sticky situation or you find a good road that others can use. Text as well on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
24 minutes late.
Bless you.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues at 24 minutes to 8. In the Situation Room this morning is Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh and CT Muga, and Emma Kithinji, head of tax training at the Kenya School of Revenue Administration. So you heard Donald's question. Complaint. He's complaining. Pablo says, good morning. Please ask the KRA lady how one goes about authenticating a KRA officer's ID. If it's Kenya Power, they use a USSD code. If someone comes and knocks at your door and says, "Mimi ni mtu wa KRA," how do I know that they're real?
Ask them for their ID. There's a number down there. Go to the website and you can verify.
And can I do all of this while this person is standing there waiting to
yes.
Okay, I can go and say, give me a minute to check all of this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's someone else who had asked about the waiver. He was fined 20,000.
Yes.
You can apply for a waiver. Yes, you can apply for a waiver, but make sure that your other taxes are paid. But at least you'll give you an option of applying for a waiver.
Meaning, get out of jail free card available, but make sure you're not anywhere near the jailhouse.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
However, is it not also possible when these letters are sent, just a small indication that you can call this number if you have queries, or does it already exist?
It exists.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is already, see, when the letters are sent to you, you will always see, talk to so-and-so with their number, or you can contact the authority on this number.
Okay.
And nowadays things are easy. You have your account manager who is always looking after you. Have you paid your taxes? Why are you late? Do you need any help?
Now, there are many benefits that the law gives taxpayers, right?
Yes.
So, for example, I know there's organizations that are paying for staff to undergo training. They get some rebates. If you have a mortgage, you get something.
If you pay
insurance, you get something. What are all these things? Just give us a few that we can take advantage of, like today at the end of this.
We can claim rebate
right
now, even
now,
as we're sitting here.
As you're sitting here, the first one, tax rebates for apprenticeship. That happened. It started in 2016. But this is what happens. You need to give internship to at least 10 people. 10 people for a period of 6 to 12 months. Okay. For a period
10
of
people within 6 months or
6
10 people each 6 months?
No, 10 people for a period of 6 to 10 or 12 months.
Okay.
Yes.
During those 6 to 12 months, there should be 10 people.
10 people
whom you've given
whom you've given internship.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a month, a week.
No, it has to
Internship
be
for a week,
6.
Eric.
It
That
has-
one.
My target is tax. Whether this guy gets
but a week-
No,
value
it
or
has
not,
to.
that's his
It has to
problem.
be 6 to 12 months. They have to be.
Oh,
with
so the
you.
internship has to be, so the intern has to be with you for at least 6 to 12
6
months.
to 12 months.
All right.
Yeah.
And you must train 10 of them.
10 of them.
Within a
this
year.
period. All
Yeah.
right, okay.
So what happens when you in 2016 the government gave tax rebates to if you had employed interns who are university graduates, but in the Finance Act 2021 they added the TVET.
Okay.
You know what TVET is?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they added the TVET students.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that is a plus. And what happens? You are given, 50% of the cost of your cost as a rebate. An example is this: you have 10 people who you're paying 30,000. Okay, per month
As internship.
Mm-hmm. Of course, payee is.
You have to do the payee and do NHIF and SSF.
Yes, you have to do what you have to do.
Okay.
So per month, you're getting 300,000, right?
Yeah.
So 50% of that is 150. So what are you claiming? 300,000 plus the 150. It comes to 450. So in your P&L, as you tally, you will take the 50% of the 300 and place it in the apprenticeship cost.
Right.
That will eventually lower your what? Your tax burden.
Right. So I can send people to come to your institution, Kenya School of Revenue Administration, because you are a TVET, to come and understand. People from people who've gone to your institution, they come and work for me for a couple of months, 6 months or so, doing my taxes, and I pay them some allowance for internship, and then I'll claim that.
Then you'll claim that.
That's brilliant.
You're given a rebate by the government.
But that is a minimum of 10. What if I have 15? So you
That's a
claim for
minimum.
each?
Yes, for each.
If I have 9, I cannot claim for any.
No.
Is there a maximum?
No, I don't think so. Not that time.
I see.
And this rebate, from the time I lodge the reimbursement claim, how long does it take before I actually get the money? You may not know the answer to that, but the reason
I
why
think you're not actually claiming the money. What you're doing is it's when you're doing your returns at the end and now calculating your...
They offset it.
Yes, you're offsetting that.
Exactly.
So you're paying less the amount that you're claiming.
That one works.
At income tax level, at
Yeah. That one
payment
works.
of income
That one
tax.
works. So do I pay the tax first and then claim, or do I just deduct?
Deduct at source.
They pay you less the rebates.
And I'm just asking.
Pay you less the rebates.
Do your math. Do your
Do your
math.
maths,
do your math,
okay. This is
claim
what they
it,
said.
and
This
then-
is the amount you agree. Okay, so here's what I'm going to pay because I've removed it. At source.
That's how it works.
Yes.
Okay, that's one.
So
Another
that's a
one?
good thing.
That's a very brilliant. That's a good thing.
Some of the other ones.
Another one is the insurance relief, the NHIF contribution.
Okay. This is a really sticky point, Emma. And if you can really explain how this works, you
Start from the beginning.
You start from the very beginning, where you have NHIF membership. Go.
Now, what is a tax relief? Let's start there.
Okay.
What is a tax relief? A tax relief is an incentive that reduces what? The amount that a person pays. Okay? So how does a tax relief works? When pay is computed as an individual, you are given a tax relief of 2,400 per
annum.
Per month. 2,400 per month.
Yeah.
All right? So that reduces your tax burden. And when it comes to insurance, what happens is that you're given 15%. The law allows you 15% of your premium. 15% of your premium. Let's say for life and health and education. And for education, you have to have 10 years plus. So what happens if you're paying a premium of 10,000 shillings, 15% of that is 1,500. So at the end of it is going to be 1,500. You're going to deduct 1,500. Okay? It's automatic on the system. It's going to be 1,500. Now, NHIF has come into that bracket. That whatever you pay, 15% of that is going to be a relief. And it's going to reduce the people who don't have insurance, so they don't enjoy this relief. So if you pay NHIF, starting 1st January 2022, you will be able to get the relief.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's remove this word relief. Because it's
Let's
because
relieve it.
a lot still we're not getting that what exactly it means. I mean, understand it, but others are saying, so what does this exactly mean? You're talking about now my burden is 10,000 shillings. This is what I would have paid. Now NHIF comes in. I get that 15%. So what do I have to pay at the end of the day because of this incentive?
It is going to be automatic in your from your employer side.
Less how much?
But this is tax. This is not to NHIF.
No, not to NHIF. It is
your
a relief
contribution
for you.
to NHIF, if it's 500, 750, whatever, goes at
750.
Okay.
But for you, it's a relief for you. So they will do in your pay when they calculate your pay. It's going to be minus the tax relief, minus the insurance relief, so that you can be able to enjoy.
So at the end of the day, what it means is that there will be more money at the end of your pay slip.
Yes, thank you. Looks like your A game, so come for advanced diploma.
I see what you've done
and
there.
then come for internship in my organization, so I can claim.
You can claim.
Are you convinced?
It makes sense, but I'd like someone who has seen it work talk to me, because some of these schemes work very well on paper, and when we discuss them, they actually exist.
They're actually live, warm-blooded human beings who've received this extra, 2,000 shillings, 2,500 shillings. Not that but that it has not been cut off their pay slip at the end of 1 month, where they see that the relief has checked in. They're existing on this planet.
And if I look at my tax records and with all the insurance I've been paying, I do not see this benefit, can I come and claim it?
Yeah.
If you learned about it today and you've been paying insurance for the last 5 years, can you
5?
No, for the last 5 years I've been there. I've just learned about it. Can I start claiming?
That's what I'm asking.
Or you claim from that month going forward. Okay. So this applies to, it has been applying to private health insurance.
Yes, and it's going to come into effect on 1st January 2020.
From January, NHIF kicks in.
Yes, insurance.
And private health insurance. Or does it include even life insurance?
NHIF.
Just NHIF?
Yeah, but the life insurance has been there. It's been there.
So what is that for life insurance?
It's actually the same thing. It's 15% of your premium up to 60,000. The law has allowed you up to 60,000.
Okay. Here is where now I think the challenges start coming in. You take up life insurance as an individual. It's not your employer who's taking up the life insurance. So are you then supposed to take those details to your employer?
Yes.
What do you take to your employer?
Your certificate. You're given a tax exemption certificate.
By your insurance provider?
Yes, by your insurance provider.
So you take it now
you
to your
take it to your employer. And remember, it is insurance that you pay for yourself, your spouse, or your dependent.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. So there are many things that we just don't know. So why you should be coming here every day? Every day, so we tell people, okay, so this one now there's some new stuff. There's a lot of work that's being done. I mean, there's a lot of let's say conversations happening right now, Emma, with regards to how much money you are collecting on behalf of the government per liter of kerosene, diesel, petrol.
The fuel, it is a very sticky area, but I will just mention it. You know, all along, Kenya has been classifying the fuel and petroleum products as exempt. Yeah? Until 2013.
Why has it been exempt?
Until 2013, when we overhauled the VAT Act. So the industry players asked, can we be given like 3 years? Actually, those goods in the VAT Act, the fuel and the petroleum products, were categorized as goods in transition. So the industry players asked for 3 years and then another 5 years. But World Bank and IMF kept telling Kenya that you need to levy VAT on petroleum products. Why? Because there was market disequilibrium.
What does that mean?
Now,
Eric doesn't understand. Explain to him.
now, when you're talking about market disequilibrium, the petroleum and fuel products, it's a ripple effect that when fuel goes up, everything goes up.
Yeah.
Everything goes up, right?
Yeah.
And why is that? Because it cuts across. It's something that you consume either directly or indirectly. So when these goods are exempt and you have inputs that are vatable, you have nowhere. You know, VAT payable is output minus input. You have nowhere to take these claims.
Okay.
So that is the disequilibrium you're talking about.
When they were exempt up to 2013, when you say exempt, what did that mean?
You know what exempt means? An exempt rate means that you are allowed. You are not allowed to claim your inputs.
Meaning?
Meaning, an example. I'll give you an example of flour.
Flour.
Yes.
Flour.
Unga,
ugali.
ngano, unga chapati. Okay. Unga, you remember a time when the prices of unga, the government had to put a price ceiling of 90 shillings. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Because the prices kept going high. So, and a good example is last year between June and December 2020, the prices of unga were down because the manufacturers were given a chance to do it at zero rate. Now, this is where I'm coming in. When we're talking about a zero rated good, it is VAT at zero rate.
Mm-hmm.
At zero rate. So you're able to claim your inputs. And what am I saying, claiming your inputs? Transportation, rent, your expenses, you're able to raw materials, you're able to claim that. It pushes you to a negative position, and that negative position you're able to claim a tax refund.
Okay.
But now when you're talking about exempt, you are not allowed to claim your inputs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the advantages of not being able to claim it or to claim it?
The advantages of being able to claim your input is that you just an example like the unga. Yes. When the unga, when it's at 0%, you're able to claim your inputs. Is that okay? That your expenses, you can be able to claim your expenses.
That I understand.
That's going, it
puts you in a position, a negative position where you pay less.
Yes, you pay less.
You pay less in terms of
I haven't asked this question
it pushes
correctly.
you to refund.
What I wanted to ask was, the position that World Bank and IMF wanted us to move away from, the position we're in, first of all, how was it beneficial to us? Why did we maintain that position before IMF and World Bank?
Were we enjoying that position?
Yes, we
was
were.
it beneficial to us?
Disequilibrium. It was a good one.
It was a good one, but the market was not very. There was a problem, and that is why they came.
There was an uneven playing field.
Yes, there was an uneven playing field.
Okay.
Yeah, and
that is to the taxpayer.
That is to the taxpayer.
To the tax collector, was it a good position?
It was excellent.
When they're not collecting.
It was excellent.
So what happened in September 2018? What happened in September 2018? You remember the Parliament passed a bill and said that fuel should be VAT about 16%, and then the president brought it back with an amendment saying that no, 8%.
Yes.
8%, and on September 23rd, 2018, they passed it to 8%, and now it's at 8%. But now, that one, for the input and the output, the flow is okay. There's no disequilibrium. So when people say that, I don't know whether I'm supposed to say this, but when people say that VAT or tax is making fuel expensive, I'm not sure. It is the landing costs. Okay, these are international price levels. These are international price levels.
You know, it is debatable in this sense. Huh? There's what the layman like ourselves, lay persons like ourselves understand.
Yes.
We can't control landing costs, not really.
No.
But anything that is added thereafter is within our purview. So if it's what raises the cost of fuel to the level that it gets to, then we could argue that justifiably we can say, but it is.
There's a 9 shillings here that I have control of.
Yes.
I don't have to pay the 9 shillings.
Yes.
At the pump.
See, we're not finding fault. We're just saying this is the situation. Okay.
It has come anyway. But here, where we have an opportunity to regulate and do something about it, can't we then just tinker with the numbers to make it then more accessible to everybody?
No, that goes to EPRA. Yeah.
You see, what EPRA does, we also understand, and it has made this issue of costing of fuel easier to understand. Because EPRA always break it down for you. So it's not just that this is the cost. They break it down for you. Now, that's where we bring in KRA. Because tax,
levy.
That's just a different name for tax. Tax, levy. And then they even baptize the tax. Excise.
Yes.
This excise tax.
Blood.
Yes. Sweat. Tax. So
many things. We're coming to the end of the show. Dan Mosiah wants to get into your training and says, how much are these courses? There's no brochure on the Kesra Academy. If someone wants to know, I want to go to undergo this training at Kesra, how do I go about it?
Everything is on our website.
KRA website?
No, Kesra website. We have a Kesra website. And they can call the numbers there.
He's saying he doesn't see the price.
Tell him to call the numbers there. We will give him the price.
Okay, Dan. See the numbers there? Call those numbers there. Do they work?
Oh, of course they do.
Are they responded to?
Yes, they are. Okay. Yeah, we are not typical government. You can be...
Okay.
Yeah.
Big issue. Among the things that has been talked about is whistleblowing in taxpayers. What is that?
I'm sure
you know someone who doesn't pay tax.
We know someone who doesn't pay tax.
Me, I don't know anyone.
That is the surest way to go to jail.
Me, I don't know anyone.
I'm sure you know.
Me, I don't know anyone.
You must know.
How can I possibly know?
I don't know.
So now...
So assuming someone out there knows, because
somebody whom we don't know.
Yeah, someone whom we don't know.
Yeah.
So when one gives information leading to identification, there's a reason why I am... putting it in
underlining.
Underlining identification of unassessed duties or taxes. It is 1% of the duties. Up to 500,000 will be given. Okay?
Up to 500,000.
Up to 500,000. But if you give information leading to recovery, 5% of the taxes or 5 million, whichever is less.
The only person who would do that is somebody who works in a certain organization in the finance department and therefore has information that will lead to identification
and or recovery.
Because they'll have details.
Yeah.
And you can do it on iWhistle.
So you're basically just turning accountants against their employers.
Essentially, you'll go to iJail.
You know what that means? Is that even this benefit is I.
Yes. Everything is
I. You get an I benefit.
Yes. But there's something else I want to... There's something else I'd want to say. Like in the Finance Act 2021, you remember the farmers were really... Our farmers were really hit.
Yeah.
When stuff was coming in, the eggs, the
milk,
the eggs, the potatoes. And something like Wangige market, you would go to Wangige market and you're told hizi mayai ni za Uganda, hizi ni za Kenya.
Na bei ni tofauti.
Yeah, Uganda iko chini. But now what has the government done? The government has levied 25% on these imports. So our farmers have an upper hand. Yeah.
That's a different discussion altogether.
We're protecting our farmers.
Yes, we are. But at what cost? Because we have these economic understandings with our neighbors, blah, 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 free economic, blah, blah, blah.
They've done the same.
Different discussion for a different day.
A different day.
Emma Kethenji, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you. Come back again. She is the head of tax training at the Kenya School of Revenue Administration. Remember, this week we are celebrating people like Emma, people who are young women in public service, and you're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Kudos.
Asante.
Come again soon. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. In the next hour, we open the box.
The
Pandora's box. Good morning. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Illness. Monari has been ill for a long time and was admitted to Nairobi Hospital a month ago in the intensive care unit. At one point, his family asked Kenyans for help to pay for his treatment after the medical fees reached 16 million shillings. Monari is among the lawyers who represented President Uhuru Kenyatta at the ICC. We send our condolences to the family. Now, leaders in Uasin Gishu County are calling on residents to turn out in large numbers to register as voters. Led by Governor Jackson Mandago, they have asked those who are not registered to do so before the deadline. IEBC Uasin Gishu County Coordinator Jen Gitonga said 196 officers had been sent to all wards in the county for the exercise. An additional 30 officers have been deployed to assist voters to register, while 6 others who are technologists have been hired to facilitate the process. Gitonga has indicated that the IEBC aims to register 166,000 voters in the next 1 month.
We have people we call voter registration assistants, and these ones we have deployed a number of 30, and then we have ICT assistants, another 6. So all these together bring in a great and dynamic team to be able to make it happen. In terms of targets, we are looking forward to register 166,000 in the next 30 days.
Gitonga has also asked young people to come forward and register as voters in order to participate in next year's election.
So we hope that the young people will pick up their IDs, pick up their civic duty, co-register, and ensure that the role is credible, believable. And I would like to say that the commence of any credibility in matters elections begins with where we begin to make the register. If the register is faulty, then the legitimacy of an election is challenged. But if the register is correct, the details and the particulars are correct, then legitimacy is increased.
Kenyans today joined the world in celebrating the World Teachers' Day. The day was set aside to highlight the rights of teachers and how to ensure that teachers are properly qualified before taking up the role. According to UNESCO Director General Audrey Osley, this year's celebrations highlights the need for countries to invest more in teacher training to ensure that every student is taught by a qualified teacher. However, this year's slogan focuses on the reality of COVID-19 and the contribution of teachers towards recovery. This year's theme is Teachers at the Heart of Education Recovery. And the Kenyan National Innovation Agency has asked the Ministry of Education to fully fund programs to educate teachers on how to implement the CBC curriculum. The chairman of the organization, Professor Rupert Marwanga, has advised the government to demonstrate the strength of the CBC by funding all teacher training. Marwanga said a large number of public schools in the country do not have adequate facilities such as classrooms and laboratories, a situation that threatens the implementation of the curriculum. According to Professor Marwanga, many changes in the education sector require significant funding from the government to address emerging challenges. He criticized the government's move to require teachers, including those earning only 20,000 shillings, to provide 6,000 shillings a year to learn about CBC, noting that the new curriculum should not be a burden to parents or teachers. Now, DCI officers in Mombasa County have arrested the suspect in the murder of a 25-year-old woman. Suleiman Mayanja, a Ugandan national, is accused of killing the woman by throwing her off the balcony of the Sunnyside apartment in Nyeri. He was arrested at Nyeri Cinemax after a failed attempt to recover his belongings from the apartment he had rented since 30th of September. Mayanja had sent someone to retrieve the items and was arrested in the process. According to the DCI, Mayanja entered the country via the Busia border. Social media services Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram are back up and running after an outage that lasted almost 6 hours. The company says the cause was a faulty configuration change. All three services are owned by Facebook and could not be accessed over the web or on smartphone apps. Down Detector, which tracks outages, said it was the largest failure it had ever seen, with 10.6 million problems reported around the world. In a statement, Facebook said that the faulty configuration change affected the company's internal tools and systems, which complicated attempts to resolve the problem. To sports, and Watford are in advanced talks with Italian Claudio Ranieri about becoming their new manager. The 69-year-old would succeed Visco Munoz, who won promotion with the Hornets last season but was sacked on Sunday just after 10 months in the job. Under Visco, Watford had picked up 7 points from 7 Premier League games this season and were 14th on the table. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
Officially in the middle of traffic hour, and it has really piled up inbound on Mombasa Road. Old Mombasa Road also giving off a lot of that traffic that was clogging up between the SGR and moving backwards towards the Weybridge. North Airport Road also is a thing, feeding off onto Outer Ring and then spilling over to the Thika Superhighway this morning. We are looking at that continuing for some time. Jogo Road also going towards the Kamkunji roundabout, very slow this morning. Aerodrome Road now connecting with the Huru Highway, which was sticky from 6 o'clock. That continues. Langata Road also joining this party. Gong Road also quite something. Getting into the CBD, jam-packed in all directions, coming out of Westlands as well. A lot of traffic this morning. Normal traffic morning, and nothing too crazy or out of ordinary, but you just have to be smart about how you traverse the roads today. The bypass is still looking pretty good. Southern bypass, though, feeding off onto Langata Road, which is a mess this morning. Go the long way on Gong Road and you should be all right. Okay, let's see what it looks like in a short while. Let us know, guys, on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
Kenya's
day.
biggest conversation as well. It is 7 minutes after 8. Kenya's biggest conversation gets into the third hour, and we thank you very much for joining us this morning. We are live on SpiceFM around the country. We are broadcasting this show around the world on SpiceFM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Well, yes, they're up now, they're running. And we're also on www.spicefm.co.ke. For the next 1 hour, we are also live on KTN Home. A very good audience. Morning to our audience on TV joining us this morning. Let's start with the day's proverb. CT.
The dead have no clear drinking straw.
The dead have no clear drinking straw.
Yes. This is a proverb from the western part of our country. And I am not certain whether it comes from the Marama, whether it comes from, put it this way, I am not certain which community it comes from, But I know what it says, and I'm going to try as best as I can to read it in the language that it was written in.
Okay.
Abafwa babula olutseshe lulera.
Abafwa babula olutseshe lulera.
Yes.
I think somebody on social media even confirmed those words. Said, they were trying to explain, to translate word for word. Abafwa babula olutseshe lulera. The dead
have no clear drinking straw.
The dead have no clear drinking straw.
Yes.
Okay. It's a very nice and interesting proverb, this one. Interesting proverb. So shall we open up the box now? The Pandora's box. The Pandora Papers leaked, and they're talking about, people who have offshore accounts, who are holding accounts in various countries. And of course, the major global publications, first of all, needed to focus, and they focused on the big names in each country. In our country, for example, our President Uhuru Kenyatta was mentioned as he and his family being said to hold some accounts there. The president yesterday released a statement and said, the Pandora's box, this information will go a long way in enhancing financial transparency and openness that we require in Kenya and around the globe. It's a good thing. But what exactly does it mean? When you talk about people holding accounts in offshore accounts, is it tax havens? Are they hidden accounts, numbered accounts? You watch movies and you just see someone Jason Bourne asking to be paid through a numbered account. What does that all mean? And what's the benefit of that? We have also discussed it here before. Companies that are registered in some countries, they are operating in Kenya. What does that mean? Is it a benefit to the company? Is it a benefit to the country? Does it have any implication on tax revenues and collection? Remember, we're talking about taxes and revenue collection in the previous hour. The implications of all that. We have two guests to help us discuss this morning. One of them joins us via video link. Evelyn Mwendo, a policy assistant at the Tax Justice Network Africa. She's been on the show before. Evelyn, a very good morning to you.
Morning. Thank you so much for having me yet again. I'm very, very excited about this topic today.
Of course you are. This is your bread and butter. You do this on a daily basis. The other person who has lived this life of basically just looking at international tax and international tax laws and practices is James Karanja. He's an international tax expert. He is in the studio. James, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Good to have you in the show.
Thank you.
And occupying that seat. We call that the hot seat for people who are coming to give us stories. But now, because you're coming to create awareness and educate us, we will not make it hot. We'll just make it warm.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Let's just start with you, James. When you talk about offshore accounts, these words, tax havens, what do they mean? First, let's start with the tax haven. What's a tax haven?
So there's no internationally accepted definition for what a tax haven is, but there are certain characteristics that make up for what is a tax haven. And one of those is the low tax, the fact that the jurisdiction is extremely low tax. We're talking anything below perhaps 12.5%, or less than 15% would be what you'd call a low tax jurisdiction. There's always the incidence of high secrecy, that there's a lot of confidentiality around who are the owners, where the assets of the organization are kept. So that information, those registries are very private, and that information is not readily accessible to any regulator. And finally, I think it's the aspect that these jurisdictions will often have regimes that allow people to set up business that is beneficial, that is of tax benefit to them.
The initial connotation obviously being that there's something untoward happening should you be looking for a place to keep assets or to keep money in large amounts without many questions and with the ultimate secrecy being kept for you. Do the two always go hand in hand, secrecy with something untoward happening?
First, I think to be clear that it is legitimate for any person to open an account wherever in a place of your choice. I mean, we're all global citizens. It is your right to set up an account wherever. And so I think the first implication should not always be that there's a purpose, yes, that is not legitimate. But to say that, yes, certainly these forums have created avenues for people to do a number of things. I think my good friend Edward Machinga, my old classmate from the law school, would say it is legitimate for people to plan their affairs towards being able to minimize your tax. And this is particularly important when you're operating not just in one jurisdiction, but you're multi-jurisdictional. Is it your business to ensure that you maximize how much tax you pay, or is always the purpose of a business to maximize its own shareholder value? So when you're operating across jurisdictions, obviously there's what you'd call legitimate tax planning, the ability to shelter your income in places that it doesn't subject it to the maximum amount of tax you want to pay as little as possible. Now, what has happened? The rules reached a place where they were so broken that people, you hear the big companies, the Google, Facebook, pay an effective tax rate of 0%, 1%, almost nothing compared to what you and I would pay as an effective tax rate. So clearly, the tax havens became a big issue, especially after the global financial crisis. And the issue of bank secrecy now was something that people, the world leaders, were paying attention to because, and this is important, money in private hands, how much public good does it do as opposed to when that is in the hands of government? Now, it's a big question because...
Money in private hands as opposed to money in government.
In government. I'll give you an example. Elon Musk today, the richest guy in the world, today is doing what? His frontiers of...
he's taking us
energy,
to space.
Energy cars, he's taking us into space.
Clean cars.
Using his own personal funds. That is money in private hands. Now, on the other hand, you have money in the hands of government, where government is able to now provide these resources to provide public goods. And take, for example, NASA, that used to do spaceflight, but today, now, is also relying on private sector. So there's no morality in in whose hands should money always be. I think what is important in this is a system of checks and balances. This is legitimate to plan your affairs, but nevertheless, surely there's an issue not of morality, but one, I think, of every party in this game looking to ensure that you can maximize what you get. Governments will do what they need to do to maximize their tax returns for public good. The private sector will do the same for purposes of, expanding their own personal interest, which in certain instances, in places where markets are efficient, you're going to now have a very good provision of services as opposed to where there is no effective business running and therefore nothing that people can go to. We're grateful, to just say we can go to Nakumat, we could go to these big malls, as opposed to when you had a small kiosk. So big money in private hands has also good benefits.
I'm looking at our country, and I'm looking at the banking sector, and I'm looking at the term confidentiality. As we speak right now, any account held by any citizen of this country or by anyone is not something that is in the public domain that anybody can have access to. So that's confidentiality. Now, as somebody who understands this, even our laws only allow certain agencies and certain people following a certain process for them to be able to access knowledge about an account.
Correct.
How does this concept of confidentiality differ with the concept of confidentiality in these accounts that are referred to as offshore accounts or accounts in other jurisdictions?
Okay, so bank secrecy is a sacrosanct principle of the banking system, and to be fair, this is what has really driven the growth of the banking sector, say in Switzerland and other offshore jurisdictions. And the same applies to Kenya now. How is this an issue? When, after 2009, the G20 world leaders say we're bringing an end to bank secrecy. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean that Tom, Dick, and Harry will go and access information about the other person's account. It just means that you've put in place a system through which governments, tax administrations that need to access this information can share it in an effective manner between themselves. So that is the system that the Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information for Tax Purposes has put in place. And now there's that effort towards putting in place legal instruments that would allow that information to be shared.
And what necessitated this? I mean, because previously it clearly didn't exist, and that was for a reason. And then the G20, or is it G10 or G8? G?
G20.
Okay, the G. The G come in and decide that this is what they want. What pushed them to come or to arrive at this decision?
So, there's that expression, greed is good. And that if you leave people to do what they want to do and they let them maximize their own gain, the financial crisis, the 2008 financial crisis, was driven first by unchecked or unregulated business that was doing extremely risky business. Now, on the other hand, governments also reached a place where they realized the private money is so much more in private hands than it was in the hands of government. And it was time to check this secrecy because now the ability, this seriously impacted on the ability to collect revenue from the private sector. So 60-70% of the revenue we collect in Kenya, for instance, comes from the top corporates. The little mwananchi, the mwananchi out here pays, if you look, the small things that are collected constitute about 30-40%. So if your 60%, 70% are people who can hide the finances they have in a place where you cannot reach it and tax it, clearly governments now are beginning to raise questions about how do they tap into this secrecy because that tax has to be collected.
Let's bring in Evelyn into the conversation. As you're nodding, and you basically are agreeing with what James is saying, this issue of secrecy and tax havens, as we say, private sector trying to hide its money away from government, but it's being facilitated by governments. These are governments that have basically created these tax havens, that's the low tax regimes, that are also encouraging the lack of transparency. So why would a government decide to set up such a system in its country? How does it benefit?
Thank you so much. I think that's a really important question. Firstly, I'd like to politely disagree with my fellow guests and say that this is most definitely a matter of morality. Just as it may not be illegal per se, it may not be illegitimate as per the laws that exist globally as well as locally, but this is most definitely a matter of morality. It is clearly immoral what is happening right now. So what I can say is most governments set up such structures and essentially create offshore financial systems in the name of attracting foreign direct investment and increasing economic development in their country. But the problem with introducing such structures and such systems in your country is that, yes, your own country will develop. I mean, there are very many countries which are supported, whose economies are supported simply by, offshore financial systems, but it's at the expense of other countries. I'll give a good example of Mauritius, which is probably the most famous offshore financial center in this part of the world, at least in the African part of the world. And you've seen that in the recent past, there have been a lot of African countries that have been putting a stop to their ties with Mauritius because they realize that they are losing out a lot, especially in terms of capital flight as well as taxes, because of having taxation agreements with Mauritius. So Mauritius will benefit, but the rest of the countries that have any sort of relations with Mauritius are not benefiting from it. It's to our detriment, in fact. Yeah.
So when we say that, Mauritius is looking at this, setting it up so that it can benefit, it's not the only country. So all these countries in the world that have set this systems up for themselves are looking at benefiting directly. Do they really also just benefit? Is it benefiting because money has been put in the bank in your country and therefore you have access to it, or are you also able to benefit from taxing? Because I'm assuming that what, James, you've said is if the government is unable to extend its hand and grab something out of this from tax, then the government is not benefiting. So how is Mauritius or any of these tax havens benefiting, Evelyn?
I have to say that it's a bit of a wonder, because what often happens is that with this, what I'll call offshore financial centers or tax havens, to be very blunt, what happens is that they don't tax at all in most instances. In fact, in some of these tax havens, they don't have income taxes at all. But what they do is that they set up sort of like a professional system, and they make it very easy for these businesses to set up. And so they'll benefit from simply having the capital flow into their country. And of course, that won't be the final destination of the investment, but they're benefiting from being the middleman, so to speak. I hope that's
what you say is clear, but there's an underlying unstated factor with all this, that this money has some nefarious background. The origins are unclear, the sources that they obtain from not clear, and usually with reference to third world banana republics like ours, the reference is that that money was stolen from government coffers. But the enterprise of offshore banking, as we call it, is it illegitimate? I think not.
It's legitimate.
It's legitimate. Yes, meaning a country has understood that this is something they can do, and they have those laws in their country which enables someone to come and do whatever it is that they wish. And the very countries, these G8 countries that signed all these laws permitting other countries to understand how they can benefit from this, this is the question I'm asking. Did it arise? James has has actually explained it well, but if you look at many of the issues that have arisen, it has arisen with leaders who happen to be presidents or leaders of third world countries, developing countries, or countries that at the best of times have had issues, many, many issues. We don't see fingers being pointed to developed nations and political leaders in developed nations. So would I be right in arguing that the reason why the discussion around offshore banking, the reason why it raises temperatures is because very many people who are associated with it happen to be either political leaders or presidents of the countries that have the background that I have mentioned.
Okay, that is true. There is one aspect of it where you're seeing politically exposed persons taking advantage of the secrecy and the weakness of the international financial system to hide money which they illegally acquired through corruption or other illegal means. And a good example is also Isabel dos Santos from Angola. And then there's also the other side of it, whereby it's not just politically exposed persons, it's wealthy individuals, and also it's multinational enterprises that are hiding or channeling their money through these tax havens or offshore financial centers for the sole purposes of reducing their tax liabilities. They want to maximize the profits that they have, and they operate in a lot of countries. And, let's say, for instance, the corporate income tax in Kenya is 30%. In another country, it's 25%. So they want to reduce the tax liability. So what they'll do is that they'll make sure that they channel the money through Mauritius or another international financial center or offshore financial center in order to reduce the tax liability. So there are two aspects of it. There's the aspect of tax avoidance, which is not illegal per se. In fact, it is a legitimate its business acumen, its good business acumen. But when it's aggressively done to this standard, then it's completely immoral, and in my humble opinion, it should also be made illegal. I'll just give an example. Between the year 1975 and 2015, the 30 African countries lost about 1.4 trillion because of capital flight, because of multinational enterprises and wealthy individuals and politically exposed persons who are channeling their money into the international financial system in order to avoid their tax liabilities, or in order to avoid, being tracked, because the money must have come from illegal sources. So imagine Africa right now is in a state where we are resorting towards unsustainable means of financing our government, financing our public resources, and that is through debt. And what we're saying is, if we could curb this capital flight, if we could curb this illicit financial flows, then we could very easily manage to sustain ourselves as an African continent. So this is definitely not a matter of legitimacy.
It's a moral issue. And
morality.
The debate will obviously always go into who regulates morality and who decides what's moral and what's immoral. And moral is by whose standards? That's a conversation that we're having this morning with Evelyn Mwendo. She's a policy assistant at the Tax Justice Network Africa. And James Karanja, an international tax expert. This is somebody who's actually done this, you've presented many papers on this particular matter. You've led a multinational push towards seeing more transparency in international tax regimes. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, at 8:30. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
From 2019, she has stayed with 6 different people. We are saving money. There's no need for him to be renting in this side.
I'm renting this side.
No. Yeah. And sometimes this is an avenue for women to con men. Let me just be very honest with you people. Today we are talking about performing marriage duties while you're still dating. Why are you paying rent and this is not your wife? We need to start holding each other accountable for those people who are dating. Learn to buy your own bed.
The only way to live your best life is to create a balance between work, love, and play. The Adults in the Room is the only show on radio dedicated to educating Kenyans on how they can stay winning in life and in love. Text the word adult to 22840 to get the latest clips from Adults in the Room directly to your mobile phone. SMS adults to 22840.
Have you seen them? Am I lying?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you.
Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone was thinking, she was asking me, what channel is SpiceFM?
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
What
a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi this morning. 27 will be the high, lows of 13. Today, cloudy in Nakuru at 18, highs of 25 and lows of 14. Nyeri is cloudy at 18, highs of 25 and lows of 11. While in Eldoret, cloudy conditions at 16, highs of 24 and lows of 13. In Mombasa this morning, light rain in some parts, cloudy conditions, however, highs of 30 and lows of 24. While in Malindi, it will be cloudy through the day at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 25. Light rain in Kisumu at 23, highs of 29 and lows of 20. While in Kakamega, it's mostly cloudy at 24, highs of 28 and lows of 15. Kampala is cloudy, sunny at 21, highs of 26 and lows of 19. While in Dar es Salaam, sunny conditions at 24 with highs of 30 and lows of 22. We're looking at cloudy conditions at 12 in Johannesburg, highs of 23 and lows of 12. While in Lagos, it's raining at 25. That'll be the low for today with highs of 31. And it's partly sunny in Kinshasa at 24. We'll see highs of 31.
Up Your Life.
It still continues in and outbound on Mombasa Road this morning. We're going to be this way for some time. We'll soon be out of traffic hours, so hang on. It shouldn't be too bad too much longer. Let's look at industrial area where Enterprise Road is not looking too bad as a way to get onto Mombasa Road from the roundabout the back. Likoni Road and then feeding onto the interchange on Mombasa Road, not too bad, feeding off into the southern bypass. That looks good, at least for now. Jogo Road continues to be a thing, as does Uhuru Highway. That Aerodrome Road is an absolute mess. Joining from Langata Road this morning. Looking a lot better on the Thika Superhighway though. Traffic just at Survey now heading out into the city. Coming off Kiambu Road is still hot and heavy as you then get out towards Muthaiga Square. We're going to see traffic continuing on Limuru Road this morning coming out into the CBD as well. Coming out of Westlands, don't forget you can use the Red Hill Link Road to stay away from the drama that is Waiyaki Way this morning. All right, getting off of Outer Ring also not too bad. So we're seeing a lot of the traffic congested right in the middle of the city. Out of traffic hours soon. Hopefully we'll get out without too much of a scratch. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. We are opening up the Pandora's box and also trying to understand. So what are these things? The tax havens, offshore accounts, people keeping money in offshore accounts. What's wrong with that? How does it benefit them? How does it benefit their countries, or how does it benefit the countries in which those accounts are held? In the studio with us is James Karanja, is an international tax expert, and joining us on video link is Evelyn Mwendo, policy assistant at the Tax Justice Network Africa. James, as we were going into the break, Evelyn had just talked about, the issue of morality. It's immoral for some of these countries to open to have these systems in place. It's also immoral for some people to take money out of here and go and take it into those places. There's a discussion there and a wide-ranging debate on the definition of morality. But also in the definition, like you gave us, of the tax havens, and you told us, so tax haven it's a country where low tax regime. Therefore, it's attracting people to come who are looking for paying as little tax as possible. And then there's a second aspect of it, which is the secrecy, which is what the G20 countries and the others decided to come together and start pushing for more openness on this. Tell us about this openness, the lack of transparency of the accounts to the regulators and the tax authorities. Why is it a big issue? I mean, why the push toward this? You participated in these conversations as well yourself. Maybe you can actually even just give us a bit of a background on some of the work that you've done on this front.
Thank you, Eric. And just quickly about my background. I've worked with the Kenya Revenue Authority for about 15 years, where I was leading the work on international tax and the transparency. It took Kenya through its 2 peer reviews with the Global Forum on Transparency. Got to be an assessor myself of some of the jurisdictions out there. And finally got to work with the OECD for about 5 years. So I've been involved in a lot of policy making, also sitting at the table, the steering committee of the Global Forum and the OECD Committee on Fiscal Affairs. So I'd say over the last few years, I've had quite an opening into what is happening. And I'd like to say a point, I think, to respond to also an issue that Muga raised. It is legitimate for any person to keep an account wherever they want to keep it. It's legitimate for people to do business where they want to do it and to try and maximize their gains as much as possible. Now, what is the problem? Why is transparency an issue? Why? And I want to first laud the work of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. What they're doing is commendable. They do a lot of painstaking work to put all this together. They take a lot of personal risk. And I want to commend, even for journalists anywhere in Kenya, the social ills of any society could be addressed when journalists also step in. So why is it important for you to have transparency? it doesn't matter. If you're doing your business, you're doing it legitimately, then you have nothing to hide. The issue you raise, Muga, this is just about banana republics? Is it just about African despots? Heck no. We've seen names there of Tony Blair. I mean, we've seen names, people, prominent people out there, Putin, yes. So let's be clear that greed is global. It's not just an African phenomenon, but certainly Africa was a lot more affected by the fact that from a governance perspective, we have very weak institutions. From looking also at the ability for these governments the capacity to deal with these issues is also very low. Then it becomes a question, hey, wait, morality. Can the companies say, okay, now this is what you've done is legal, but can you look into this and see what you can do different? So let me say this in response to my colleague Evelyn. It is proper, and it is actually a movement now by companies to do what they call responsible taxation. And I want to refer you to a team of CEOs that came together that they call themselves a B team and said, look, we have things we're not going to do. We're not going to take our money into tax havens for the sake of it. We are going to be open and transparent to governments. So, and Bob Collymore, the late Bob Collymore, was a big proponent of the work of the B team. This is excellent. This is business saying we are also part of the move that can help to move the SDGs. Companies also have a role to play to pay, to put back to society. So either through directly or through what they put back into government. So I want my last point on this is that the international system is actually very skewed. Because it's a competition. It's who has power. The US can put in place a system like FATCA to get information about foreign accounts of its own citizens, but will not reciprocate, will not participate in any reciprocal arrangements. Two, will not even support efforts. They're not part of the global system on a common reporting system, which is about automatic exchange of information. They will not support the beneficial ownership system that is put in place by the Global Forum. So I must say there's a lot of hypocrisy in that international system.
What you mean is that, for instance, if somebody has money in the States, there's no guarantee that system will automatically give the information to, say, some other country seeking that information.
So if you're a US citizen, from wherever you are, you can't hide.
Yes, however,
to the reverse, the US have very few agreements about who they can give information.
That's why also if an individual such as myself, like Eric and I have a company,
right,
and we have money in the US,
right,
they are not under any obligation because they haven't signed any agreement to release information about the money we have in that country.
Correct.
To Kenya.
Correct. And so they're actually recognized as among the top 5, actually top 2 tax havens in the world for that reason. And this is what I'm saying. The people who get affected are the small island states. They're the ones who get... So there's a political argument in this. It's about a competition for resources. So I must say, there is a lot of hypocrisy about this system and how it is run.
What stops Kenya from being a tax haven?
Actually, I must say, Kenya has a big qualification already on being a tax haven, and this is about secrecy. Our beneficial ownership, the ability to know who owns company X, company Y. And you see it all the time, even when parliamentary committee is sitting and they're asking who owns this clinic.
And they hit a brick wall.
And they hit a brick wall.
Yeah.
And the company register would come, and that information is not available. So we do have a strong qualification already.
Right.
To be classified as.
To be classified as a tax haven.
James, then, and also for you, Evelyn, and perhaps what Evelyn is saying then does have some merit. Because if we're looking at then issues to do with morality, because it is clear that the reasons why this money is being kept in these tax havens is not solely to be able to maximize on profits. That there is clearly another reason why this money is being, and not just not across the board, but by some individuals, by some institutions. And it is not just to make a maximum profit, but that it is also to be able to hide. The reasons as to why would have to be proven one to the other. But it is obvious that if you want to hide something, then perhaps the source of that thing or the reason behind it is not as clear as day. And that there is something that you want to hide from, and that's why you're putting it there. That's why it was such an eyebrow-raising moment for the Globe when this came out, because much more than you can actually fathom is being hidden, and the reasons behind that also being hidden. So isn't that why then you should be able to look at it with a little bit more scrutiny and say, all right, in as much as people are making maximum profits on their business, that there's nefarious activity behind the sources of these funds in some cases.
Certainly, and I don't want to begrudge the argument on morality. What I want to say is that, and I want to take an example of Mauritius within the East African context. The East African countries, these are Kenya and its East African regional partners. These are the biggest trading partners. We don't have a tax treaty between these countries. Now, what does Equity Bank, Kenya Commercial Bank, do if they want to operate in these countries? You actually have a situation where you're exposed to taxation in both countries in a way that is not beneficial to the business. So what would they do? Logically, in the absence of a framework like that, they now have to look for a landing spot where you then manage your affairs. So what I want to say, the morality issue is certainly one, makes the case for more transparency in what is going on, that you should not keep those things hidden. But that said, if you are within your legal right to do something, and then certainly do it, and let governments also come back. And I began with this point, checks and balances.
Right.
Money is not, or financial resources have to operate as efficiently as possible in whichever hands they lie. So the private sector have a role to play, and the government also has a role to play. And then once there are checks and balances in this system, then it works. But when that system is broken down, that's where there's a problem.
That's where there's a problem. Yeah. Evelyn, have we seen, I'm looking at a global, on a global scale now, that there have been individuals to whom this tax haven activity have been called out, and to see that the funds that they have kept away can be linked to any kind of untoward activity. Have we seen that, examples of such around the world that could then attribute a little bit more to what you're saying?
Yes, we have. I mentioned the example of Isabel dos Santos, and it was actually the work of the very same journalist who released the Pandora leaks, that is the Luanda leaks. And it was a very good example of, a wealthy individual with very strong political connections taking advantage of that position and using the offshore financial system to hide wealth, to do unscrupulous activities and such. I'd also like to really just emphasize on the issue of morality. I keep emphasizing on that issue because I want Kenyans, and not just Kenyans, but, residents of the world to be enraged by what is happening. It isn't just, I have so much to say, but let me take myself slowly. The issue of capital flight and illicit financial flows is a bigger elephant in the room than the issue of corruption. It is very clearly linked to the issue of human rights abuses, because essentially what you're doing is you're allowing human traffickers, you're allowing drug traffickers, you're allowing terrorist financiers to have a system which they can use to hide their money and to finance their activities. And it isn't just about politicians and prominent people also abusing that system and hiding their wealth. It's also about multinational enterprises benefiting from the infrastructure that is set up by the government, but refusing to pay their fair share of taxes and leaving the majority or the bigger share of taxes to be paid by ordinary Kenyans, such as you and I, or by ordinary citizens. So I'll just give an example yet again of the earlier statistics that I had mentioned. This isn't something that started in the last decade or, within the 21st century. This has been a system that has been operating, how we say it in Kiswahili as chini ya maji, or underneath the waters or below the radar for years and years, and it's been benefiting wealthy individuals, it's been benefiting multinational enterprises and, political persons who are taking advantage of the public offices that they've been given, and we are losing serious resources because of this. So it is also a matter of efficiency, if we're going to talk about efficiency. As I mentioned, we lost 1.4 trillion from the 1970s to 2015. We lost $50 billion in 2015 alone because of illicit financial flows and capital flight. I think I don't want to trivialize it by saying that it's a matter of morality, but I think that as African countries, as Kenyans also, especially since we've seen that the Pandora list is also connected to us, we really do need to start paying more attention to it and start getting enraged by this issue because we're losing a lot of resources.
Evelyn, if I may just say this, what you're saying is true, and the moral issue cannot be downplayed no matter how hard one tries to. But the reason why politicians are a focus of our discussion on this continent is because, especially presidents or those associated with them, is because they also happen to be some of the wealthiest people in the country. But there are countries in the world, and there are individuals even in this country or in East Africa, are actually being plundered. And then that money can be traced to some of these accounts. But then if you talk about it globally, some of the wealthiest people are not government. They're just individuals and their businesses. Corporate entities are also extremely wealthy. And the reason why these businesses exist is because there is a market for that business. And that's why they're tax havens. There's a market for it. And I feel that simply because we belong to a country that has for the longest time had politicians who have done the very things they're not supposed to do, and people who within government have helped plunder our coffers, it then doesn't mean that we shouldn't open our eyes to the reality that anyone who is a business individual or people who are business, who have an inclination towards business, will look for means and ways of ensuring that whatever they're seeking to do, that is make money, that money is protected in the best way that they can.
Is one of the best ways then secrecy?
Actually, I'm glad you asked the question because I have to ask the question, what is wrong with secrecy? Because it's being mentioned as though secrecy is this terrible thing that you can't have. What is wrong with secrecy?
To the extent that it impacts on the ability of a government to know whether you ought to pay, whether you are entitled to pay tax or not, then that becomes an issue. But as far as between Muga and James, I should not know what is kept in your accounts. And a really interesting point Eric raised here about, who are priests in the church of morality. That is a huge, huge question. And here, what it behooves governments to do is to invest in being part of an international cooperation system where they have ability to access this information, because Eric and James and Muga will not contribute. If you think about it, if you have two petrol stations, one here they're selling the taxed petrol for 130 and the other one is selling at 60, which is the price without tax, please tell me, where does your rational mind take you?
You'll go to the 60 bob one.
I mean, and that's the human nature. Whether you are the big corporate or you are the small mwananchi down there, we would all like to have an opportunity to save the shilling and extend it to do as much as possible. So,
So then where do you draw the line between what human nature is likely to do or operate and then what you would ask of individuals to operate in the right way, regardless of who the high chieftain or the high priest of morality is? Where do you draw that line?
So I think this line, it just means in a system where we're trying to live together, we're living under state, the state has an obligation, one, to put in place checks and balances that check your greed and check my greed, check and provide the tools itself with the tool, equip itself with the tools to be able to check you and I, because we will not, when we talk about morality, we want to cooperate.
But also to check the possible excesses of government and government agencies. Because if I'm thinking of, say, a simple banking system like what we have in Kenya, if these checks aren't there, then it means anyone can have access to my account.
Correct.
So long as they're a government agency, the police can, just think, the anti-corruption, anybody can have access to it. But the systems we have in this country, you will need to go to court to get a court order, which means you have to prove that you need to do that. Now, it's a check and balance, and I think the check and balance is good. But even more importantly, the debate around it and the information is even better. Because anytime you mention offshore banking, no one thinks of businessmen who are simply seeking ways of maximize their profit. You think of somebody who has looted public coffers and then spirited the money abroad.
May I think about somebody who's, ongoing at that moment, looting, not by taking from the public coffers, by denying the public what they should be getting, because that's the whole point. When you're putting it in secrecy, you are, just like James is explaining, you are shielding the government from accessing that information and also from knowing how much they should tax you. If they don't get access to tax you, and they are building roads, they're building hospitals, they're building other public facilities,
you have nothing to look for.
And you are using those public facilities to enrich yourself more and more, then you are stealing from public coffers.
Indeed, Eric.
Okay, so now that we are agreed there, can we just take this break? A quick one.
Yes.
It's 5 minutes to 9. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. We've been live on KTN Home for the last 1 hour. The conversation continues on SpiceFM. We have with us in the studio James Karanja. He's an international tax expert. And Evelyn Mwendo. She is a policy assistant at the Tax Justice Network Africa, opening up the Pandora's boxes and just trying to understand. So who puts things in that box and why? And then now, let's understand, how does it impact us when money is in that box that we can't access? Good morning.
Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, it's about 2.5 minutes to the top of the hour. Let's take that 2.5 minutes to hear from Evelyn. Evelyn, why do you agree that there's nothing wrong with secrecy?
No. I'll take I'll take the radical approach, and I think there's something seriously wrong with it. I think that these leaks show that there's a serious problem with the transparency systems that we do have. The checks and balances that my dear colleague was speaking of are clearly inadequate if we're only finding out about these unscrupulous activities through the leaks, through investigative journalism, through whistleblowing. Then clearly you can see that a system has been formulated that very, very deliberately wants to hide these wealthy individuals and these political and prominent people, as well as these multinational enterprises, so that they can maximize and benefit from the funds, which, whether they get them legally or illegally, they are getting. I also wanted to emphasize that, as had earlier been stated, tax avoidance is not necessarily illegitimate. It's legitimate as per the law. As a lawyer, I can tell you that there isn't a law, at least in Kenya's case, which says that it's illegal to avoid taxes. But the issue is the way it's being done and the standard to which it's being done, it's being aggressively done. And what we're seeing is that a lot of African countries are losing resources through this, whether or not they are getting their resources in a legal manner. As had been mentioned earlier, we're living in a capitalist country whereby the market forces will go where there is most profit, and they will try their best to maximize their profits. But we have to remember that at the end of the day, these businesses also benefit from the public resources that they find. They benefit from the labor, and they benefit from the well-educated labor, and that is the government doing. They benefit from the existing infrastructure. They benefit from the political stability. They benefit from the legal
everything that's been put in place by ordinary good-paying taxpayers. Evelyn, stay on the line. Let's hear the news, and then we continue the conversation. We also want to open up the phone lines now for people to actually share their thoughts with us. What is it that ought to be done to increase its transparency in the financial system, in the global financial system, so that more and more governments are able to dip their hands into people's earnings and tax, and then provide services to both the rich and the poor? Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news
This
from
is
around
Newswire
the
Dennis
world.
Assetto.
94.4
Kenyans today joined the world in
SpiceFM.
celebrating World Teachers' Day. The day was set aside to highlight the rights of teachers and how to ensure that teachers are properly qualified before taking up the role. According to UNESCO Director General Audrey Osley, this year's celebrations highlight the need for countries to invest more in teacher training to ensure that every student is taught by a qualified teacher. However, this year's slogan focuses on the reality of COVID-19 and the contribution of teachers towards recovery. This year's theme is Teachers at the Heart of Education Recovery. Now, the Kenyan National Innovation Agency has asked the Ministry of Education to fully fund programs to educate teachers on how to implement the CBC curriculum. The chairman of the organization, Professor Ruben Marwanga, has advised the government to demonstrate the strength of the CBC by funding all teacher training. Marwanga said a large number of public schools in the country do not have adequate facilities such as classrooms and laboratories, a situation that threatens the implementation of the curriculum. According to Professor Marwanga, many changes in the education sector require significant funding from the government to address emerging challenges. He criticized the government's move to require teachers, including those earning only 20,000 shillings, to provide 6,000 shillings a year to learn about CBC, noting that the new curriculum should not be a burden to parents or teachers. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has reiterated the importance of the United Nations Development Programme in reviving the global economy following the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking in a video link at the ongoing 15th UNCTAD conference, Kenyatta called on member states to use the forum to discuss best practices for maintaining trade and development. In addition, Kenyatta reiterated the need for developed nations to assist developing nations to revive the economy and tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. He urged all nations to work together to achieve the Vision 2030. Trans Nzoia County Senator Michael Mbito has asked the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the DCI to investigate the whereabouts of drugs purchased by the county governments. Mbito said the lack of medicines and other medical supplies in government health facilities continue to make Kenyans with low income to suffer as they are forced to seek assistance from private hospitals.
Leo unasikia kwamba hata hospitali hakuna madawa. Na mimi najua pesa ya madawa ilitumwa. Dawa zinanunuliwa. Tuko na hiyo record kama Senate. Tunapewa hizo record zote kwamba hata haijafika mwezi mmoja na nusu, Trans Nzoia County ilinunua dawa ya 64 million shillings. Sasa kama hiyo dawa haikufika Majewa, ilienda wapi? Na mwenye anauza dawa ya serikali, mimi nitaomba corruption iwasimamie tu kali sana.
The voter registration exercise enters the second day today, with low voter turnout having been witnessed yesterday. According to IEBC officials in various parts of the country, there is need for continuous education, especially for young people who are targeting in the 30-day exercise. Joyce Somalwa is the returning officer in Machakos County.
This is day one, and as usual, Kenyans always have a last-hour rush. Of course, we expect some low turnout this week, but maybe beginning next week, it will pick up, and we are expecting massive turnout in the last week of registration. We have 120 machines across the county, and we also have one machine that is at the Huduma Center. So if anybody is within town and is near Huduma Center, then they can also visit and do their registration.
In Kwale County, electoral officials have warned politicians against interfering with the voter registration exercise. The county's electoral boss, Nelly Longo, has asked politicians to educate locals on the importance of being registered, while at the same time urging them to stop lobbying voters to register in their preferred areas.
Aspirants, wale ambao wako bunge sahi, mtu yoyote ambaye anaweza kuchangamsha watu waende wakajisajili, tumewakaribisha. Hatutaki watu wabebwe na lori nzima ama na basi wakiletwa mahali hapo. Maana by the end of the day tunataka hawa watu wajisajiliwe. Ngoma watakavyoicheza mbele yao ya kupiga siasa, hilo ni lao.
She also called on political parties to adhere to the 2/3 gender rule when preparing for elections next year, warning that parties that don't meet the threshold will not be allowed to run in next year's general election. Now, Watford are in advanced talks with Italian Claudio Ranieri about becoming their new manager. The 69-year-old would succeed Visco Munoz, who won promotion with the Hornets last season but was sacked on Sunday after just 10 months in the job. Under Cisco, Watford had picked up 7 points from 7 Premier League games this season and were 14th in the table. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
At a few minutes past 9 o'clock, we still have quite a lot of traffic on the roads this morning. CBD is quite packed, and we're looking at a packed industrial area as well. Right around the Donholm rail stop, and then going towards Manyanja Road, there's some traffic there at that junction, and it looks like it'll be there for some time, has been for a minute or so. We're also looking at extended traffic coming off Mombasa Road in and outbound, and the Thika Road traffic is not letting up. Kiambu Road traffic looking a lot better now. But then we still have that whole stretch from Survey out towards Pangani, and then going off in the little tributaries of Moranga Road, Ring Road, Ngara, and then going out towards Parklands on Forest Road. Okay, so that continues. We're also looking at it coming out of Western, still a thing. Don't forget, the bypasses are your friends. Red Hill Link Road has been particularly nice this morning. Use that to get out of the city and then back in. All right, SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's look in about half an hour. Text on 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation
7
Room.
minutes after 9.
The
Kenya's
only way.
Conversation continues. We continue talking about the Pandora Papers, the leak, and the work that's been done by the investigative journalists of the world to basically just expose who has money stored where and how have they gone about keeping that money in those financial havens. The tax havens of the world, that's a conversation we're having with James Karanja, international tax expert, and Evelyn Mwendo, policy consultant at the Tax Justice Network Africa. CT, let's begin with the day's proverb.
I've actually just been informed that with many dialects of the Luya nation, the B is pronounced as a V.
Avafua Vavara.
Well, that's a fair attempt, but the F is still pronounced as an F. So don't give it a B or V sound, okay?
Avafua Vavula.
I suspect that is how we would go about it.
Okay.
Okay, Avafua, Vavula, Oluseshe, Lulira. Okay?
Okay.
The dead have no clear drinking straw.
The dead have no clear drinking straw.
Drinking straw, yes. This, of course, doesn't refer to the drinking of water. It refers to the ceremonial consumption of alcoholic beverages.
Yes. So it's there. It's a pot of busa with the various straws.
Everybody with their straw.
People around.
Yes.
Guy dies, guy goes with his straw.
Right.
Actually, that's the end of that particular.
Or guy leaves straw.
Or guy leaves straw behind.
You come with straw usually. So
you will not be in company
when you
of
leave,
drinkers.
You leave with your straw.
Yeah.
All right.
And I don't know of any culture where you pass on the straw. You come with your own straw.
This proverb must have been devised by the other Levis. This guy used to occupy a certain position around the busa. They're thinking, that guy is gone. Forget about him. Next. The dead have no what?
The dead have no clear drinking straw.
Bas. You're dead, you're gone.
Right.
There's no straw for you here. Next. Okay. Some of the comments on social media, Ndu.
Right. Okay. So, according to Thomas, the money stashed in tax havens by African political elites are disproportionately large in relation to the economy of their poor countries. It's obviously looted cash, denying their poor countries billions in development revenue. Interesting. Lamek says it's immoral for Africa and the African leaders, but it's interesting how we've now just zoned in on just African leaders. Your point, James. It's immoral for Africa and the African leaders, politicians, presidents to impoverish the citizens through looting public coffers. How much money or bank balance can a man can make a man comfortably say Sasa Imetosha? All right. He says, look at an African president like Sassou Nguesso. At 77, his family owns and operates his country's mineral reserves of diamonds, and all the proceeds of the sale is stored away abroad instead of improving the lives of its citizenry. That's, of course, talking about the Republic of Congo. But yeah, this is interesting that's what the thoughts are. Now we've already zeroed in on African leaders and third world Africa banana republics.
Actually, it's third world banana republics.
Okay, voila. Okay.
And mostly found on this continent and in Latin America.
Okay.
Yes.
So.
Southeast Asia also try to have a few, but they
don't
seem
do
to
quite
be
as
getting
well.
out of that banana thing.
But why this skew on perceptions that tax havens are benefiting people from those third world banana republics, the leadership from those countries, they are the ones who are basically just carting away their national resources and storing in these countries?
Because look at it, that there is a natural resource and the people in the country are not benefiting in any way. Or at least evidently,
they're languishing
from this
in
natural
poverty.
resource. They're languishing in poverty of untold proportions. And here you have a family that you can obviously see is not poor.
And their acolytes.
Right.
Yes.
And
So
the people, their posse is not poor.
It's the degree of how much they've skimmed off the top. They have skimmed everything.
By the way,
it's not even just the top.
Actually, you've said it.
To the root.
You assume they're skimming off the top. This
They're
is
not
not a
just taking
conversation
the
about
proceeds.
that.
Yeah.
This is a conversation about leaders who are synonymous with their nations. Meaning, when you hear president, the country is his. They own the country, and since they own the country, they own the resources.
All right,
and they conduct themselves in the manner that suggests exactly what I'm saying.
So they're not skimming off the top.
I think, just like I keep arguing here on very many other reporting trends, this is skewed. Why is Putin here? Putin is not from a poor country.
No, he is not from a poor country.
But just want to create this impression. So you've seen, Putin has built some house somewhere in some hidden place where nobody knew until we brought in a drone to fly over, and now we've exposed it to the world. Now Putin is in these papers. But he is from a very rich country. But why are we not seeing as much publicity about people, business leaders, people with political connections, political families in the West?
Because people in Putin's country, there are many people who are richer than Putin. In our countries, unfortunately,
in the West,
there are very many people who are richer than
and
even,
are in these papers.
There are many
in the Panama Papers, in these papers, they're there. So why don't we give as much focus and attention?
The focus seems to be on political leaders, and the reason is because many of these political leaders are not known to have businesses that can justify the generation of the sort of money that they are reported
and
to have
in
spirited
addition to
away.
that, you will not find that you have large numbers or large percentages of the population that are living in abject poverty in a time where they have resources to which these riches that are being hidden away can be attributed to.
Yeah, I'm thinking first about the proverb, today's proverb, that the dead have no clear drinking straw in the context of our conversation today. I mean, about extractive institutions, whether from the presidency, from government, from the powers that be, it's clear. It's clear. The weak, the less people who have less power in the community have no say in how issues, how resources are handled, and clearly
managed.
Yeah, so what we see, and I'm grateful to see, like in the global context, there's been money that's been sent back. For instance, Sani Abacha, you see their governments, political governments that have been brought down in Pakistan, for instance, because of some of the leaks that came out in the Panama Papers. So there is some effort by governments to bring back accountability as far as political governance is concerned. There's a push, but let's face it, as we say, the dead have no clear drinking straw. The weaker countries do not have a seat at the table. The weaker companies do not have the same muscle that larger companies can go into a government office, will get a mining contract, will have left some money. And so, it is an extractive system, and clearly not one that is fair. But the whole system is about, I think, when people like ICIJ come in, what they do, they disrupt that system. They make it possible that even those international systems that have been put in place that are not working, you could certainly come in. And I laud the work of people like Jicho Pevu here and others who've sort of stepped in on some of the social ills to highlight the issues about what is going wrong. And I think that's what we need to encourage. As much disruption as possible to that established system, so that at least everyone has.
And that's why I'm having an issue here, James. Because as we focus on all this, as look at The Guardian, at the Wall Street Journal, the conversation, the coverage they're giving is Putin, Uhuru Kenyatta, the King of Jordan, and all those things, and not where is the money.
Yes.
How long has it taken for Nigeria to get back that money from Sani Abacha? Why was it taking so long? They still haven't gotten everything. Why is it taking so? Why aren't we? If we were to disrupt the system, then we'd be going into. So where are these havens? Can they release the money?
Sure.
Those havens, apart from just this one that we keep talking about, that's our neighbor, the rest are not. So there are those small islands, but then the bigger countries, you said, America is a big one. The others are big ones. Switzerland is big. Why are they not sending the money? The spotlight, even as I say that we are blowing this thing out of the water, is not focusing on where the money is. It's focusing on these individuals, the despot. You see these Africans, you see.
I hear you. And also, James, I mean, I'm also looking then at putting the spotlight on the cooperation that is clearly needed to have a lot of these things operational. Because it is not just somebody standing up today. It's not James or CT waking up today and saying, all right, you know what? I'm going to go and plant money from whatever proceeds in a tax haven. I'm going to store this money here and hope that I will depend on secrecy to allow this continue to be. There is cooperation on the other end. Just like we look at so many things that happen that we say, slavery was cooperation between slave traders here and those who are buying, willing buyer, willing seller. Shining the light on the cooperation, we talk about Sani Abacha today. It has been a tooth-pulling exercise to get that money back. Somebody's holding on to it. Even when there was an agreement to say release it, where is this money being held? In the Swiss banks, in the Caymans. Who is agreeing or who is insisting on still holding on and releasing it like antibiotics? Why? Shining the light on the cooperation, I think, is actually just as important, because in as much as we're saying give it back, there's somebody who's holding on to it.
True.
But even more important, if you think about it, you're talking about this issue of the Pandora's box. Let me just tell you, according to this list, you see, we are focusing on political leaders on the African continent, and yet that list is extensive.
Right.
It deals with heads of states, heads of governments, heads of organizations, ministers, bankers, media, legislators, politicians, royalty, business people, others and other organizations.
Yeah.
But the total that is alleged to actually be hidden away, now that's what's staggering. It's something like 32 trillion.
Dollars.
Yes.
US dollars.
You know, I paused here just for effect. Trillion, then I mentioned dollars. Okay? It's a colossal amount. Okay? So when you look at that amount and you look at the origins of some of the names that we're talking about, then you then point. What Evelyn was saying then begins to make sense. You say, wait a moment. Are you telling me that there's any country in the world that doesn't have poor people? Then are you telling me that some of this money rightfully, legitimately was actually garnered or earned by these people to the point where it can be stashed away? And are you then saying that the countries where this money originally emanated from, that these people couldn't have used some of this money to rectify some of the social needs that they have or some of the problems that they have? Now, that's where now in my mind the morality comes in. And especially when you look at, if it was a list dealing with business people, it would be a very different discussion. But the moment you have heads of state, heads of government, all right, heads of international organizations, then you say, wait. It then begins to point to what you said earlier on. The disparity, but in my mind, an almost near conspiracy of understanding.
It's a conspiracy.
That so long as we are within this bracket, we can continue making this system function and work.
And we shall make noise just for PR purposes.
Yes. But we're not
we
really
shall
interested
sign
in
papers, we
this
shall
thing.
sign, we shall form an institution, we shall appoint James to head that institution. They will talk.
Yes.
We will come up, we will find
For
treaties
instance,
here
they
and
keep talking about Isabella dos Santos. At what point did it suddenly become clear to those who started pointing this thing out and making issues out of it, and the people who are involved, who are then giving information, they had been part and parcel of our functions for the longest time.
And the focus is on Dos Santos.
Yes.
Not the enablers.
No.
Not the people who shook hands.
Whose hands?
Who took the money?
Who had clasped hands with Dos Santos for the longest time. And suddenly they were seeking to disengage.
Yeah. Evelyn, before you come in and you add your comment into this, let's hear from Amani, who's on the line. Good morning, Amani.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Duke. Good morning, CT.
Good morning,
Amani. And good morning, the two experts, tax experts, a lady and gentleman. Sorry, I've forgotten your names already.
James and Evelyn.
Yeah, pleasure to meet both of you.
Right.
I think I agree with the principle that these havens are really an economic development and a moral issue. Because you can see the impact or the effects of having capital flight, as the lady Evelyn well put it, out of countries, and how it really sets back development. And this is not only for third world kingpins and third world countries, it is also what happened in America, Trump's America, whereby he actually put in certain policies to bring back money into America. It was a very strategic, well-planned, well-organized strategy that got money coming back. Now, if America, being the first world country, needs that money in its system, how about the rest of us? That's how important it is. We cannot undermine it, dismiss it as being irrelevant, or, well, it's my money, I'm trying to protect it. You have a moral responsibility to develop where you live. And this also flows into what happened to the multinational private companies or public companies like Facebook, Google, where the European Union has been consistently over time putting in measures to ensure that these companies, where they operate, where they have offices, that money remains to a large degree in those countries, because those countries made it happen for them, meaning it made it possible for them to be profitable. And therefore, as far as they're concerned, the money also belongs to that particular country. They cannot take it all out as they were doing and just leaving operational funds. Yeah. So this is something that is so critical, and it needs to be put on the world stage again and again, because we have to sort it out for the good of each country, for the good of the individuals concerned, meaning you, me, and everybody else, because we're not going to we'll not be able to borrow money locally if money is being siphoned out of the country. It means the money left in-house becomes very expensive as well for me and you and Manjiko to borrow.
Yep.
So this is just untenable. So please keep pushing it. We need you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amani. Evelyn, you hear the call?
Yes.
Go
I
on.
can proceed.
Yeah, go
Thank you so much. Your comments really summarize everything that I've been trying to say today. I want to make it clear that the offshore financial system, that tax havens, the biggest beneficiaries of these structures are wealthy individuals and multinational enterprises. It's not even the governments that set up these tax havens, and it's not the rest of the government of the governments which are suffering because of these tax havens. The biggest beneficiaries, I want to make that very clear, are wealthy individuals and the multinational enterprises. And it's gotten to the point, as has been put by Amani, where this is becoming completely untenable. In fact, right now there's a global movement to introduce a global minimum tax, which will do away with the whole idea of tax havens. Because if you can't lower your tax lower than, let's say, 15%, then what is the need and use of a tax haven in the first place? And the funny thing is, this is actually being perpetrated, it's been instigated and perpetrated by the Western nations, you know, the ones who are actually the biggest perpetrators of illicit financial flows as well as capital flight. So if it's gotten to this stage, as African countries, we need to wake up and realize that we're actually harming ourselves by setting up these structures in some of the African countries, such as Mauritius, and also Kenya is setting up an international financial center, which, as has been put in certain circles, is as good as a tax haven. So we need to wake up and try and curb these capital flights that we're seeing in our country through our laws. And then we also need to sit down and ask ourselves as Kenyans. A political family, so to speak, has been named in this leak. So what is the next step that we can take nationally and at a local level to address the issue that is?
The transparency that the president even talked about. John is on the line. Let's hear from John. John, good morning.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Very well.
And thank you.
Yes, I want to ask a very naive question, but I hope I'll not get a naive answer. I'm just wondering, actually, too. We are saying all these things are legal. But I'm wondering, why would somebody go out of their way to ensure that those companies are not traced to them? Because I understand one company is formed and the directors are the legal team of the company that formed helped in forming the company. Why would you just form a company and give your name if it's illegal?
Okay. That's a good naive question.
Secondly,
John, yes.
In our text, in our context as Kenya,
yes,
we know that as a president you're supposed to declare your wealth.
Yes.
If we went to President Uhuru's wealth declaration form, will this be part of the wealth that he declared? Or this is outside of that? Thank you.
Santa Sana. They're actually not naive questions. They're
very heavy questions.
Very heavy questions. Number one, James, start with that. I mean, so you set up a company, right? And then you are the beneficial owner, but you mask it under various other layers. Why do people do this?
Yeah, so
from a beneficial point of view. Now, let's start from the positives.
Yes. So, I mean, I don't know about the positives, but I can clearly see a scenario where if I want to launder money that I've gotten from sources, questionable or illicit sources, then I want to hide when I set up a company to which I invest in. I don't want questions about where I source this money, and therefore you want the company to run, and you can put in money, and then you don't have to be known. It doesn't have to be disclosed. So that's immediately to my mind. This is one thing that comes as the reason why people want to keep off. There may be other more legitimate reasons, perhaps. Muga, you can think through what those are. But reasons as a businessman why you feel that you do not want it known that you are the person. But I wanted to say something other than the work that the ICIG are doing on the Pandora's box, and without making it look like it's a basket case situation we have. They've been international efforts to put together like cooperation. What IACIJ is doing is public disclosure. But currently, there are over 100 governments that share financial account information. This is what I was talking about, the CRS, which is through Kenya now is a signatory to what we call the Multilateral Convention on Mutual Administrative Assistance. It's taken us 5 years to get that signed and ratified, but now we have the means as a country to get onto that bus where Kenya would be able to access information about Muga, James, about where we're keeping accounts, and that information could be brought back purely for transparency reasons. I would be able to tell KRA, this is where I got this money. This has nothing to do with your law here as far as taxing me is concerned. So there are tools. There are means. So a government is not helpless with regard to the tools that it can use. This information, like I say, over 100 countries are already sharing information automatically about accounts that people are keeping abroad.
The issue of then the next phase, like the president said, the next phase of transparency in the country, in Kenya, as he promised to respond comprehensively. We will tackle this after the break. But before we go to the break, let's hear from Karanja, who's on the line as well. Good morning, Karanja.
Eric, Du and City, how are you?
We're fine, thanks.
Yes, and James there.
Hi.
Yes, I remember in 1992, there was a Nairobi romance where they say that a certain president, whom I don't want to mention, had 150 billion abroad. Now, we know there was a person who was with the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, was a chairman. I don't know, a chairman or a director. He owns a large farms in Canada. Now, how comes that Kenyan government is helpless when we come to give taking back this money to our country, where we know we go there at the beg for World Bank and IMF to bring money back to Kenya to give us loans? Don't you see that is a mechanism that we are using? Maybe these people who are abroad have a very good connection, so that when they come here and we want money, they cannot bring that money back. James, can you address this issue? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Karanja. Are these people just loaning us our own money? 9:30, Kenya's biggest conversation continues. Would you like to contribute to this conversation? 0719-012-600. We have James Karanja and Evelyn Mwendo, both tax experts. Evelyn is from the Tax Justice Network Africa, and James Karanja, what's your organization? Who are you working for now? So you work for KRA, you work
for the OECD, and now I'm working at Andersen. It's a tax consulting, tax and business advisory firm.
Okay, Andersen.
Correct.
9:30. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refused to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani maternity hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it up.
own money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned it.
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, so we're looking at partly mostly sunny conditions in Nairobi this morning at 21, highs of 27 and lows of 13. Nakuru is cloudy at 20, highs of 25 and lows of 14. 26 will be the high in a cloudy Nyeri town this morning at 19, coming down to lows of 11. And it's mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 14, highs of 24 and lows of 13. Mombasa this morning is sunny at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 24, while in Malindi it's cloudy at 28 with highs of 30. It'll come down to lows of 25. We're looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Kisumu at 25, going to highs of 29 and lows of 20 today, while Kakamega will be mostly cloudy at 26, currently highs of 28 and lows of 15. Out in Kampala, mostly sunny conditions at 22, highs will be 26. We'll see highs of 31, 30 in Dar es Salaam, where it's raining at 27, 13 and cloudy in Johannesburg, going to highs of 23 and lows of 12, while in Lagos it's raining still at 26 with highs of 31. We'll see lows of 25. Kinshasa is sunny at 25, highs of 31 and lows of 24. In Paris this morning, light rain at 13, highs of 17 and lows of 10, while in London it's sunny at 12 with highs of 15 and lows of 11. Beijing is sunny at 16, highs of 18 and lows of 12, and New York is waking up to cloudy conditions at 17, highs of 18 and lows of 16.
Spice up your life.
All right, it's dulling down in certain parts of the city. Roads getting into the CBD, specifically coming off Mombasa Road, not looking too terrible right now. Uhuru Highway still continues with a little bit of that drama. Eldrome easing off just a little bit, and Langata Road looking a little bit prettier this morning as opposed to the mess that was earlier. Into the CBD from all parts of the city, not too bad right now. It's building up and slowing down on the Thika Super Highway. Probably give it about another half hour or so to see what happens there. Other than that, we've managed to keep things to a dull roar. Let's keep it that way. SpiceFM KE on Twitter through the day. Text 40127 in all things. Let's keep it moving.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
In the room with James and on the line with Evelyn, talking about tax havens. So, what are we likely going to see out of this whole expose by the Pandora paper, the Pandora leaks? The president says, okay, so this is a good opportunity for, opening up transparency, even in the country, even in the audits that shall follow. Are we likely to see any action by governments just because this has been exposed, and a government deciding, okay, so we have seen, for example, Kenya, these individuals have been exposed as holding accounts? Are we likely to see such kind of action, James?
Yeah, I think this is a difficult question, largely because the fact that you have amount X in a certain account is not enough to establish tax liability. There's actually a whole legal process that one needs to go through to access the documentation. It's not enough that I take what a journalist put out to me and I say, now I could go in and I'll approach Ndu and I'll tell her, now I'm raising a tax bill for you. So you have to have documentation, you have to engage in the legal processes of accessing that information, doing an actual audit. So I'd be curious how much past leaks, for instance, had an impact. I think all they do is point to the revenue, to the risks, and the one that they want to follow up. And this is only in the case of individuals, because if we see Nike with whatever they've put there, we all don't know where they all source this from. So to know that this is something that affects your country is a much harder.
It comes into when you consider organizations. Remember, where is the parent company nestled? Okay, for instance, say in the US, okay? But they have other branches elsewhere in the world.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Now, maybe the US tax laws requires them to pay, corporate tax requires you to pay 21%. But in whichever other country that they're nestled in, they don't have to. Or the money that they generate from there, instead of taking to the states where it will be subject to this tax, you take it to one of these countries which requires a minimum, which should we say, enables you to enjoy a minimum tax output. Now, organizations that are multinational in nature will probably feature more than others because they are the ones who will have the means and the ability to actually evade tax. But there's something that I wanted to point out. I was looking at this list that is provided, and under the heads of organizations, there's one, but they only mention one name. That is Dominique Strauss-Kahn, former managing director of International Monetary Fund. Okay? Now, it doesn't mean that this is a criminal who's taken money out. The problem is we have associated tax havens with criminals.
Right.
Now, if you look at heads of states and even former heads of states, for instance, that entire list is almost occupied by former heads of states of Latin American countries. Almost literally. Current heads of states, we have our head of state, we have the Gabon head of states, and Congo.
Jordan. In Africa.
And Africa. You move out, you have Jordan. Now, I looked at that list and I thought, I don't see the Saudi princes and all these fellows here. What it means is this, even with the list, they'll be incomplete. It's what they're able to access, which means there are levels of secrecy that even they can't access. But we had the Swiss ambassador, former Swiss ambassador, here in this room, sitting exactly where you're sitting. And his president had been in country to sign and ratify this agreement that you're talking about. Now, what is interesting about that particular agreement is this, X millions of dollars apparently stashed away in their country, and it has been established it actually belongs to the country. It's not as though you'll get the money back. No. The money doesn't come back. The money goes into projects that will help your country. Now, of course, the debate here is who decides.
Yes.
Who made you
The
one
case
to
of
decide
Nigeria,
we're
for
going to do
example.
this, for example?
The money that was to come back out of the money that had been taken away by Sani Abacha. There's a whole list of conditions of where the money should go. Why is this? I mean, James, so
yes, James.
this tax havens, I mean, you have dealt with these people, even you, Evelyn. Why would they be the ones who decide? So, we agree, this person, they got the money, of course, it may have come from your coffers, so we need to bring it back.
So let us tell you how you're going
to
get your money.
We are not giving back the money to Sani Abacha. We are giving the money back to the people of Nigeria.
We've got that.
Under a different government.
We've got that.
Why must they dictate how that money shall be used when it comes back?
And must receiving country accept?
Yeah, so it's clearly very patronizing, and it's marks of arrogance. It says that we are less able to think for ourselves about what we could do, and it's clearly a skewed system, which just brings me back to the point that the proverb of the day, we have clearly no drinking straw.
We don't have a drinking straw. We are dead.
The dead man.
This is, it's literal. That we not able, these governments sit with the information they have from their banks, and they know who's keeping money there. They are aware that this is political leader, this is political leader, that there's money that is illicit in their system. So clearly they are complicit. Now, what is the system? What is the institution that would bring this back? And here is my big worry, even as someone now who's been out there in these international institutions. Clearly, as we say, the one who pays the piper calls the tune. And we could talk about the hypocrisy of the US, for instance, that imposes conditions on others, but you cannot impose on them the requirements to do or to play, reciprocate with others. So it's a broken system. How do you fix it? There's no clear answer. They say in economic political power, the political economy, it's the issue of the might is right, and this, it's not a simple thing you fix. And so the solution is in perhaps the little gains that can be made, and then it's civil society speaking out, making these issues. And I must say, credit to organizations like TJNA who've who, as Muga would say, who trumpet on a point and do not let it go. And they just keep trumpeting it. Even if the tune changes, they will keep but that's what is needed in some situations, that if you want change, you've just got to keep harping on a point. Now, unfortunately, even when some of these changes, like automatic exchange of information, country by country reporting, these were good things suggested by civil society. Unfortunately, if you look at who is benefiting, developing countries are not in play. So it's ridiculous that these people from these institutions can then take up rules, but then lock out the countries that would really need access to those tools. So not an easy question, not an easy solution how you're going to turn things around and now say that the powerful countries now will be brought to account. So big question there for all of us. How do you bring your political leaders at the top of leadership to account? Big question. Clearly we have the power of the vote. Next year we have the ability to say who we want to lead. And those things, we keep moving along and trying to make good decisions as we go along.
Evelyn, how do we push for this international and global accountability?
Firstly, I just wanted, before I answer your question, I apologize, I just wanted to briefly point out that we do have a provision which will sort out our issue in Kenya, and that is Article 76 of the Constitution, which states that state officers should not have offshore accounts, basically. So I think it's a matter of the political will of Kenyans also as we move towards the election.
However, as individuals.
I mean, is that all it says? It's widely quoted, but is that really all it says?
As an individual, I may not have an offshore account, but can I have an offshore account in any other way?
It's a matter of constitutional interpretation.
We are there now, are we? Okay. Those are murky waters, my dear. The moment we get into interpretation.
You're the lawyer. You guide us. Can I?
I don't want to start a proper constitutional law debate.
Okay, go on.
To look into. But what I can say about the issue of international accountability and the transparency and tax mechanisms, tax transparency mechanisms that exist, is that just as James has observed, there is a lot of hypocrisy where you find that the Western nations are pretty much the ones who are dictating the systems and mechanisms and the frameworks that as African nations we should follow. Like he mentioned, the Mutual Administrative Assistance Convention, and when you look at the success stories, you really wonder how exactly African countries are benefiting from it. You look at the country-by-country reporting framework, and they aren't doing their due diligence, if I can put it like that, the Western nations. It isn't, as much as the framework exists, we aren't seeing a lot of success in terms of sharing that sort of information. And you see, I think that's a matter of also political will. It's also a matter of the bargaining power of African nations. I'll also give an example of the issue of global minimum tax right now. You'll notice that the whole process is being spearheaded by the OECD, by the European Union, by the US even, and African nations, their voices are really being ignored. Because the suggestion was that the global minimum tax rate should be 15%. And yet in most African countries, the corporate income tax rate ranges between 25% to 30%. So if we lower it to 15%, how exactly will it be benefiting us? We really do wonder what would be the advantages, the pros and cons of proceeding to this sort of arrangement. And I think it's for that reason why Kenya and Nigeria specifically did not vote yes towards that proposal because of some of these concerns. So as Network Africa and also as part of the civil society, one of our biggest asks is that we move the decision making from the Western nations and make it an African and developing country based sort of voice. And what we believe in is that we allow the United Nations to set up a body that will spearhead the whole process instead of having developed countries sort of using their higher bargaining power to impose.
Evelyn, can I just pause what you're saying for a single second here? How does the UN is not a business entity, so how does it survive? People give it money, isn't it? Now,
yes, indeed.
If we start from that premise, which country has been known to give the United Nations the bulk of its money? Okay, I think you know where I'm going with this, don't you? Okay, so please now, having established what I am, the US gives it the bulk of its money. So do you really think that any policy that the US sets about or seeks to actually implement or go about doing, do you think it's going to go against the dictates of this, its biggest donor? I am saying what you're saying makes sense. And in an ideal world, what ought to work. But we don't live in an ideal world. The world we live in is skewed. The world we live in is disproportionate. The world we live in is unfair. That is the reality of the world we live in. Now, what you're saying is aspirational in that let us try and make the world a fairer place. When we talk about capital flight, I think to balance it, let's look at developed nations and what they do with their money. You'll find individuals who are extremely wealthy in their own country. You don't see them on any list of having taken money in some offshore account. They will probably have accounts in other countries, but it's not offshore. They have business in other countries, but they have accounts in those countries, meaning they want to abide by the tax rules or regimes of those countries, and so they have no need or wish to have money in tax havens. What I particularly find alarming, it is being argued by those who presented this list that close to 33 trillion US dollars seems to seek this avoidance of paying taxes. It doesn't seem alarming until you look at what the global GDP is like. The global GDP is at 84 trillion. So you're talking about something that's just slightly more than a third
of that amount
of the money that does its rounds in the world, avoiding tax. Now, that is alarming.
It is indeed. And for me as well, as we're looking at, how we can make the whole world work well, how can we make Kenya and organizations such as yours, Evelyn, come in here? The government of Kenya commissions Kroll Associates to come up with a report. Kroll Associates comes up with a report and says all these things that we are now talking about. But has it been implemented? Now, how about we just start by establishing that we can actually push for that transparency in the country and implement reports that we come up with. For now, we have the Kroll and Associates report in Kenya. So we just start with that before we go to Panama and the other places.
Or just while we're talking about something that's equally thorny in this country, Ndu report. It's a report that it came out and was put in a drawer somewhere. And it has stayed in that drawer.
And it talks about these injustices and where we are talking about people having benefited from taxpayers, from services, taxpayers being denied services.
Indeed. Yes. I agree with you. There's the Ndungu Land Commission report, there's the TJC report, there's the Kroll Associates report, there's the New League. But as we can clearly see as Kenyans, it's a matter of the lack of implementation. It's a matter of lack of political will. Clearly, there is some sort of state capture. I don't want to get political, but there's some sort of state capture at play here, which is why I keep emphasizing that, some of these problems may only be sorted out through people exercising their power to vote and also choosing wisely the kind of leaders that we place there, because we must also take responsibility for the people that we give public powers to. So the legal framework is there. What I can say is that there's an adequate legal framework. There's been a lot of resources spent in doing the research and the investigation into some of these matters. The issue is just political will and implementation, and you can't really implement something that directly, it puts the people who are actually in power to question. So there's a bit of difficulty there, and I think that's where the issue of checks and balances also comes in. And yes, the rest of the, I really don't want to.
Yeah, I think let me just chime in here. Say, I think one thing that's really encouraging in our local context, based first from the Article 1, that all power derives from the people, and it's been really encouraging. And kudos to TJNA on your work on the Mauritius Treaty. That's the sort of thing when public-spirited litigation comes up and says, "Hey, wait, government, you cannot." Make certain decisions unchecked, because if you do that, you're exposing this country to clearly untold level of we know the sort of situation India suffered with Mauritius, Nigeria suffered with Mauritius, Rwanda, the people that had to come back to renegotiate because of all the economic damage. So that was positive, and clearly we saw even in a big government initiative like the BBI, and the public come forth and they're able to take matters to court. Not taking a position on that, all I am saying is the public have a means to challenge issues on wealth declaration, on Chapter 6, integrity. Yes. Is this being properly implemented? So I think the new constitution certainly gives the public a framework within which to put government to task. Because who is government? We are first government. We are the ones who contribute power to the executive, to our representatives. So if they are not able to do things as expected of them, then we have an obligation to use the resources, to use the institutions there like judiciary, to then try and check. So
and also believe that it would wield some kind of result if we just have if folks just have the gumption to be out in the open enough to say that this is unacceptable or that this is what we would like to see. Because I truly believe that it works. I think that for too long, there's been too loud a silence over some of these things without taking into consideration the realization that you can actually do something about it by virtue of the powers that have been granted by the Constitution.
Correct.
It's power that we all have. But it also has to begin with understanding and knowing what's happening around us, what's happening around the world, right? So today we were just focusing on just trying to understand this whole thing of, so the information has been released and this is what the information is saying. So what exactly is this information telling us? Is it telling us that our money has been stolen? Or is it telling us that there are people who have money that have made and they are keeping it somewhere? Can further investigation be forced out of all these revelations? And you're saying it's a long route, because you're just saying, okay, so this one is saying that you have money in an account somewhere. What next?
So?
So what? What wrong have I committed? Yes, I have an account. Next.
And you are in the list of very many people who have accounts.
Yeah.
You see, the discussion about offshore accounts, I think, as James mentioned earlier on, is because of the secrecy and the implication of the origins of that money. Okay? And that is why third world countries or countries that have been known to have strong-armed leaders or dictators feature very, very strongly. Essentially, it points to the origins being government coffers. However, you talk about the wealth of the world and the countries that are wealthy. Many individuals who are wealthy have their money nestled in their own countries. Meaning they are willing to abide by whatever taxes their countries have. And if they have businesses elsewhere, they abide by those. Because if you're talking about only something like 26,000 accounts that have been mentioned here, in those offshore accounts, my friend, we have very many people on this planet. And if you're talking about accounts on this planet, accounts will probably feature in the billions. So it's a small number, but the amounts that we're talking about are colossal.
Yeah.
They're
staggering amounts. Staggering amounts. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Evelyn and James, for coming and sharing all this information with us. Yes, we shall, of course, keep our eyes and ears open and on the ground. I'm particularly interested to see Dominique Strauss-Kahn, head of the IMF. Where did he get this money from? If we are looking at president of this country, where did he get the money from? Let's also talk about head of the IMF.
Some countries even
who is currently telling Kenya how to operate.
Media houses have money in these places. Okay.
There's also the political angle.
Yes.
DSK has just faced one political heat after another. You will never be president of France for as long as somebody is alive.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Evelyn, thank you as well. Let's hear today's proverb.
The dead have no clear drinking straw.
Now, contextualize it.
Avafua, vafula, va, vu, la, oluseshe, lulera. You see, there's something about, this is really a discussion about power and relevance. You see, the straw in a drinking establishment makes no sense unless it is attached to an individual. So the question you should ask is, what straw do you have in the drinking pot of whichever place you are in? If you don't have a straw, then your relevance is not only suspect, it's almost absent.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And if you are dead,
well, now
significance.
That's what now you
wake
provide.
up.
If you're dead, then one, you provided certainty that the straw won't be there. But if you're dead and you can be revived, please revive yourself.
Yes. It's only you who can revive yourself.
Yes.
Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today. We're back again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. CT Muga Ndu Okoh and Eric Latiff will be here with you. Tomorrow at 7, we'll have Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, the Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, to talk about this universal health coverage program. She worked on it before it was rolled out. She'll come and tell us what is the big idea and then what are the challenges in implementation. A very good morning. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the